5 project.
Okay. Okay.
Buying properties and rehabbing.
Some one of those.
That's a hard, no?
They last forever. They last forever.
Alright, welcome to my site planning class. Battle plan for today. Let's have some fun. And I will not yell at you guys. So I'm talking very quiet.
Shark bill.
Training exercise 3 weeks ago. Finally had time to fix it. Alright, hi.
Hey.
Alright. Want to hear about the battle plan of today's class? Want to hear about the battle plan, how to close the semester? Alright, here's the battle plan. We're doing today an introduction to planning law and some of the cases that you should be aware of that comes to your mind when you deal with land use zoning, and in particular the few things we deal with easements and takings. Eminent domain, yeah. This is not a law lecture. This is a teaser of, if you are interested in planning law, what kind of other work you will find. This is a teaser of, if you would sit for 4 semesters in law school, you will have a little bit more in depth. This is not necessarily name dropping. I brought notes, so we'll read some of those technical terms from notes. This is 1 semester of planning law in 1 class, 1 exercise. So what we're going to do is, we're doing an introduction to planning law. We're going to have the utmost simplistic and boring presentation on planning related law legal terms. What is a PUD? If we covered that a little bit, but I didn't put up a definition. I am not going to read the whole definition. I'm going to tell you the interpretation from the application side. Yeah? We had 3 chapters that are concerned about legal text in this class. One is a fundamental idea of land use zoning, constitutional police powers, etc. So we're going to start with that. Where do we get actually the powers to do zoning and all that? Why? If you understand this, that means that the Planning and Zoning Commissioner is your friend. They are just trying to interpret the zoning code differently than you do. Dwelling units per acre, we call it density. As a developer, you call it a limitation, a constraint. A planner will say this is great because certain density measures have certain lifestyles associated. A condominium tower is different from a single family home. Neighborhoods of them. Okay? So we're talking about that. I try to make this funny and entertaining. I'll try to entertain you with a certain inspiration because we end that planning law session with current issues in Florida. If you haven't heard about HB 631, we're going to tease you with this today. We can have a discussion on that without even looking into the proper legal context. Just off what you learned and read before. Again, this is a teaser. Some of you had land use regulations in summer with Peter Hand. This is slightly different, but we will see maybe a case is the same. Nolan, Dolan, Lucas. Those are the 3 big names you need to remember. They're actually in a different order, but Nolan, Dolan, Lucas is something that rhymes. When it comes to access of the public and the public better good on private property. Why? Because we're going to deal with private property a lot in our careers. Alright, that's one part. Second part is, let's take a look at the housing, architectural types, and the social issues. This is not a housing class where we are going to have 5 hours of debate scheduled for different point of views. We are going to have a comprehensive idea of housing issues that come to our mind. We can speak freely, okay? If something comes up in a not proper sensitive wording excuse that fellow student. He or she might not know that proper terminology, but wants to help to understand us in the discussion. Okay? Fairly okay environment. I'm trying to present a few other things on that. I want to lead into the idea of urban renewal, because if we have housing, first legal, then housing in terms of physical form, we're talking about issues. That's part of the discussion and debate. Yeah? If we talk about issues, we need to talk about, well, these are issues like 30 or 40 years ago. Still are some present, how we can change those. Urban renewal is one of the buzzwords that come to mind. Urban renewal I want to present as well because we are running out of land. So at some point of time, you have to take a look at how can you reuse something. Can you just rehab the apartment building and change the income that you're producing street with that rehab? Okay? So fairly straightforward, but it's a little bit time consuming between those three sections. Urban renewal also talks about the idea of ideas and views, and I want to inject a little bit the idea of what we call complete streets. Not a street designer or an engineer, but in every technical term, darn, design-driven session, you're going to have a question about where the heck to put parking. Heck is in this term a technical term for placement issues. Yeah? So you kind of get the idea. Let's speak a little bit about practice issues. It's not always a parking a building permit for your barbecue deck, but parking is a problem. At what point do you decide to move from cheap surface parking into structured parking and you pay $20,000 to $30,000 a spot? Or is that part of the whole concept and completely priced in your concept? Why? Because you have already plans to build that parking garage in a way that in 10 years, you could use the first floor based on the new ceiling height as a retail space or office space. You don't put it up in 12, you put it up in 15 feet as an example, and you have enough overhead. It's just a few cubic feet of concrete and rebar at this moment, but you plan for a different idea. Placing placeholders for the future. And one of the last sessions we did is we had a discussion about campus planning. Yeah? What we have seen on that old slide, the football and soccer fields is now dorms. Within 5 years, change in the plan. Yeah? So you have to maintain like a land bank. What do you want to do? Is Central Park in New York going to be redeveloped as towers? No. It's essential to the quality of life of the residents there. Yeah? Could you imagine maybe one corner lot? Yeah, but it's a taboo. You're not doing that. On the other side, municipalities are also saying, hey, you know what? In the next 20 years, we're going to have 3 or 4 phases to develop another 10, 15, or 100, 200 acres out, depending on the scale you're looking at in the regional context. Yeah? Because if you talk about regional context, transportation is the issue. You need to start talking about metropolitan planning organizations, your MPO, federal funding. You just can't build an interstate on-ramp or an extension of the lanes on interstate in just a day or two. Good luck with that. It's not like SimCity, drag and drop, and boom, you have your high-speed internet, high-speed highway. Okay? That all said. Then we're going to return the midterm, and then we're going to break into group work. Yeah? With the group work, I want to start doing this right now. We are having 5 teams, and in 2 weeks is final presentations. Saturday, October 13th at 12:30, we huddle up in this room, maybe in a different one because I have a bunch of people showing up, so it's getting a little bit too tight in here. We're going to have about 6 or 7 judges, external alumni board members, folks in the business for between a year or 2 or 40 years. Everyone but 1, 2 on these judges have been exposed to those Duplo blocks. But the land use lawyer, but she's cool, she's fine, she's fun. Okay? So we have Debbie Olszewski, one of our wonderful board members, and Tony Treller, one of our wonderful board members to come. Tony was a judge before. Development 2 students from spring, you remember Tony. He was awesome. He is fantastic. He gives you straight shooting comments and answers. He does not bullshit you. Another technical term. So in case you didn't realize, this is a prep talk. We got to do a prep talk here. So, prep talk wise, 7 external on the list. The final project counts. 50% is the judges as the presentation. I have no say on your presentation based on my grading style. Different to development 2. Development 2, the team got graded. I am not going to grade your individual presentation style. If I remember right, it was just judges. No? I'm going to take a look at your team-based report. That's what I will see. No? And you're going to have a peer review in a professional, wonderful manner about your own peers in the team. So let's say Ryan and Woody would be in a team. They're going to write both 2 individual peer reviews. One, Woody is writing about Ryan, right? Not like Ryan is a great guy, 100% great. No, more like you're going to be a supervisor and you write for your intern or your colleague. I said 2 peer reviews. Woody is also going to write about himself. How did I do in my team? Was I a good team player? Was I accessible? Did I have enough time? A very constructive criticism for both of them. If something went south, state that in a professional language and manner. Writing, he is an ass, is not the professional judgment of the capabilities that didn't get successfully used. Saying, was a great guy, fun to work with, hard time to find scheduled time, that would be a little bit better. If there have been frictions in the teams, state that in a professional, friendly way. A good paragraph is good enough. You don't have to write 20 pages.
When is the memo due?
The review?
Yes, the memo that we're writing. Yeah, the memo.
The report?
Yes, sir.
Time of presentation, last day of class.
Perfect.
And there will be
And that's how much percentage of the grade?
20. So if you look at teamwork all combined gets into like a 55%. So if you have issues with your team right now, talk to your team. There's a lot of ways to fine-tune things. If there have been misunderstandings, there are happenings. It's okay. One of the things we learned last week with Kona Gray was check your ego at the door. Be humble. Listen. This is not, I'm the best, I'm going to write this whole report by yourself and you just follow and fall in line. No. Hey, I know I'm really good, but I already wrote 30 pages. Can we use it as a basis? I'm open to suggestions. Different approach. I was told yesterday, I'm very patient, but sometimes I do not appear to be patient. I said maybe that's the German accent or body language. I'm very impatient when it comes to deadlines. But I'm patient to help out, communicate office hours, as mentioned in Chia's class. They can vary a little bit. I'm going to drop at least one evening in and say, okay, we'll find evening time for those who are external and need to commute. Okay? For your project-based stuff. Yes, please.
Can you go down the breakdown of the final report? You had 15% from the judges.
The breakdown is listed on the syllabus. I just wrote that down again for Marcus. Yeah? It's on the syllabus. Everything is on the syllabus. All right. What is not on the syllabus is my offer to you guys. Next week's session. We have a bunch of readings. We have some lectures. I don't believe that we need to break out blocks next week to have a discussion on how is your team doing. That should be done already. Today is just a fine-tuning. Help you guys with the presentation at the table. Yeah? I would like to put you under full crazy stress and do mock-ups next week. Doesn't have to be perfect.
That's good.
Mock-ups. It's gonna be okay. What I mean with mock-ups, I would like to use the last 2 hours of next week's class session to have every team individually present in front of me. Hmm?
In a private room?
You like the
Oh, yeah.
Like we did in the other class. This is a try run for you guys to do a team presentation, if not the first time, maybe the second time. This is a try run to give you an idea what is going to work with the audience or not. This is to give you a try run for the idea of this is completely great, or you need to work on those slides on your presentation style. This is a learning experience you get in this program maybe once or twice. It's a life-changing experience. It's a private session. We can tape it for you guys so your team can review it, so you know. You can see versus, hey, as you can see on the slide, this is what we're talking about. I'm not looking at anyone specifically, but there is a great learning curve in that exercise. Yeah? We're not doing this with external judges, but I think it's very beneficial to get you guys that feedback. For those who had that mock-up with me and Kona and Jessica last time, it was very helpful. If you're on the right track, it is reassuring and fine-tuning potential wonderful. If something is not going smooth, if you've never done a team presentation, this is the time to get a hiccup and deal with it. No? Because the week after that, you have enough time to fine-tune and change your writing. You don't have to have everything done. If you want to put a quick map on the PowerPoint, as to say, and you're not done with the map yet, you're going to put a placeholder in it, a box that says map, overview map. And you can say, as you can see here on the overview map, this is where our site is located. Or, this is our model. You can write a picture and say, picture of the model. Picture of YMCA, if you didn't do that picture yet. Huh? Do not spend hours to Photoshop pictures you have taken with your iPhone. Don't do that. A good shot, cut it, edit, that. Like literally almost drag and drop and crop it. You know? This is not a high-end design report that you need to deliver. Some standards in layout and creativity, fine. It's not like Word document, plain text, page, plain. There are different ways to do that. Say columns or half a page overview map, descriptive text underneath it. Everyone has different ages or different experiences, so the teams can talk. Yeah? But what I would like to do, a similar setup to our final presentations, is 5 teams, give you 12 minutes time for presentation. You gotta think about this. You have 2 hours. 2 hours is 120 minutes. 5 teams. If I do I do the math right? Yeah. 50. Did I do it right? Yeah.
12 times 5.
And about 8 minutes Q&A. So 20 minutes per team. No? So that's about 100 minutes with changes, leaving the room in and out. So for the last 2 hours, I would like to do that. If someone was completely nuts about it, talk to your team. Everyone needs to be on our team presentations. If you want to skip the mock-up, fine with me. You can't skip the final day. You know? If you travel for some reasons, like Neely today is on a wedding. There are certain things in life you can't control. You know? Make sure that your teammates are there for mock-up and final day of presentation. You know? I have some lost souls today, this morning and this afternoon. I know of 2 people that are not here. As in, hey prof, I'm sick, or hey prof, I can't do that. So communicate. If your teammate bails out on you, you still present, and a teammate gets a serious problem with me. Done this, been there, hate to go back. that clear? All right. All of that said, this night's about fun. Yeah? Again, similar to the TS class, you have done a lot of climbing in knowledge right now. Yeah? So we're at the point right now where we can fine-tune the knowledge and play with it. Particularly one thing, the law lecture today is an introduction to planning law and how we can use this to our advantage and get a context. Is there going to be a quiz or an exam about it? No. If you have done the readings, great. If you didn't, you'll find this really interesting. Yeah? If you didn't, you might want to read that again. Because you're cheating on yourself in your career and your development in these classes. Okay? Doesn't mean that you need to read all the law chapters in the next 3 days. There's enough on your workplate. And I totally understand that professional life is killing our study life too. You guys can communicate with me. Maybe there is something I can help you with, you and your team. And you come in and send me a PowerPoint and take a look at it first time before I see it. I'm more than happy to do that. My plate is full to the top. I'm not complaining because I have students I need to support and teach to excellence. Yeah? So I had one student, let's say, in the real estate market analysis class. Took like 2.5 days to respond to that email. Okay, fine. I had the response, a good response, I hope. Yeah? So hang in there, guys. The next 2 weeks are going to be interesting. Interesting experience for you guys, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And everyone who had the class before in this program knows that there are moments to relax and chill out. Speaking of moments to relax and chill out, to finish this talk about next Saturday in 2 weeks, the way this looks like right now. And you tell me if something has changed. We're doing 12:30 here, we're doing team presentations for roughly 2 hours, depending on how fast we can swap. Again, swapping presentation is on that computer. It is very annoying if you walk in with a jump drive and it takes 5 minutes to set this up, or 2 minutes last time in one team. If you have 12 minutes speaking time and you use setup for 2, you have 10 more minutes to go. And I will cut you off. Oh, the timer, ding, 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 ding. Ooh, phew. Thanks. Like Simon Cowell and what is it? America Got Talent, Britain Got Talent. Hold the music. Hit the buzzer. Huh? All right. I don't know. Is it still on? Yeah, is it? I don't know. I saw it like 10 years ago. All right. So that's kind of the idea. Prepare the presentations, check this machine, if that browser really works, if that PowerPoint works the way you want. The standard 4:3 format on the PowerPoint slides is very happy. I don't do on my computer stuff, I don't do the widescreen format. Simple change like that can throw you off. If you need a remote clicker, I will bring one. Usually have one in my backpack. Huh? If you never did a presentation with a remote clicker, this is a new thing you have to figure out. Great to use maybe that in a mock-up. At least once you had that. It's so bad that if you're used to the one I use, if you go to a conference anywhere, or planning a Sony meeting, you get a different one, even a different one is different. If you don't want to do a clicker, because then you have this whole, here it's your turn, pass over, make sure that the one who's not speaking is clicking the slides, and you can train that and practice that in a mock-up. Again, mock-ups are your friend. Yes, please.
So you said it takes like a couple minutes to get it set up. Like, what are we supposed to? What do you recommend? Are we supposed to send it to you before, like our presentation, so it's on the computer?
You said because.
Well, what we can do is just before class starts.
Oh, like before that.
We have a lunch break.
Put it on the desktop. Just put it on the desktop.
Like before.
Just put it on a desktop, open it up, so you just literally swap into the window.
Just come early, because if you come
So
late,
before
you're
class,
gonna be
we
nervous
come
and
by.
screw it up.
You have to be here at 12:30. Even if you present
I
at
didn't
2
want to do
o'clock, you have to be in the room at 12:30 at the latest.
Was
Yeah?
it-
So, speaking of, so after the presentations around 2:30-ish, we're going to have the delighted pleasure to have Steve and Noah present their current work. Noah, I think, is on family vacation, so Steve is coming along. two alumni who met in the classroom. Yes, you heard that story probably 5 times. Two alumni that met in the classroom doing classes and started their own company, and they're quite successful. Very, very great to look at how they actually succeed with the first steps. We'll see how they handle the first failure, but they have been very conservative, very thoughtful in their steps. So what we're going to do is, they have a really cool project. It's called the Zen Garden Apartments. He's going to present us the design and site planning components on Zen Gardens. Then we wrap up about 3-ish, wrap up class, hop in the car, into the cars, drive up to Oakland Park, park in front of the City Hall, take a small walking tour through the neighborhood. So please, I know it's presentation, professional style. Huh? You don't have to suit, I don't suit up for the presentation, but you might want to consider not to have jeans and t-shirt on, gentlemen. Yeah? Does this mean, ladies, if I may say so, you have to show up in the super in shields? No. But maybe if you show up in an office attire or something like this, be aware that we're doing a little bit walking later. Put some sneakers into the car. Yeah? It's a short walking tour. The whole thing is like 40 minutes with talks and stops. We're going to have a quick talk about the neighborhood. We're going to have a quick site visit of the Zen Garden Apartments that are going market in November. So they're pretty much done. Project, he will tell us that they bought it, kicked the people out. It's kind of a fun story. Rehabbed everything, and now they're trying to mimic the idea of the ambience in the neighborhood. And in case you don't know where that is, it's like a block walking distance away from Funky Buddha Brewery. So instead of a pure classroom, no boring photo-supported session, we are going to walk into the apartments. We're going to take a look at it. We are not going to touch fresh painted walls, but we're going to absorb everything we can sniff, we can smell, we can watch, we can look at, we can talk about. I encourage you to even make boom and see if there's an echo in the hallway. Huh? Absorb, live that space, otherwise the learning experience is gone. And then we end up gathering in a Fred Forby sponsored get together at Funky Buddha's in the reserved area with appetizers, and there's a special deal with beverages. We'll figure out.
Yeah, you get a free one.
Huh?
Special deal, you get a free drink.
I don't know if they have to pay or we pay, I don't know. There's something social going on with everyone who was in the classroom as guest judges or students. Yes, please.
How long does that event afterwards go till? Because I have a flight later that evening.
Probably.
You don't have to take the free beer.
You don't?
You don't have to drink.
If you don't, let's make it in a very humorous way. If you don't want to socialize after class is dismissed.
No, I want to, and I want the beers.
You're gonna need them.
I think we have that space for 2 hours.
Oh, nice.
It's like,
Okay, so till like 6:30?
Yeah, 4
Maybe you
till
can do
6 or something. We just had to make a decision if we can reserve the space and put some money down to make this happen. So please actually take advantage of that, because we are paying for the appetizers. It's a great, fun, relaxed moment after all the craziness. Huh?
Where is that located again?
Funky Buddha Brewery, Oakland.
It's just north of Oakland.
We will send out
Park.
posters.
Dixie
It's
House.
15
Oakland.
Yeah, it's fairly short ride. Sounds farther away. It's
North or south?
no. It's a cool place. The purpose of this exercise is to see Steve and Noah's project. It happens to be in a place where there's an award-winning brewery around the corner. It's the last session of the day, of the block. Class is officially dismissed, and students of the program, friends of the programs are invited to join. If you have religious beliefs or other activities that will prohibit you to enter a place like this, that's fine. It's not a disadvantage. It's completely okay. If you have to catch a flight and need to run, completely okay. Yeah? I am inviting everyone for a social event. If other life things come past, fine. said yesterday afternoon I will not be able to attend the Christmas party of the college because I'm not on this continent. So, fine. When is your flight?
I just looked, it's at 10:30 p.m. So I'm
Oh,
not.
you're
Perfect.
I got a little side note.
Party
You
City
could
Mall.
book it down for a couple
Right
hours.
next to that.
Side note?
Everyone needs to RSVP for the YOLO, if you could kind of project that as a class.
Yeah. Talk to Ryan if you have special dietary issues.
Everyone needs to RSVP to YOLO, if not, the
Oh,
program
yeah,
will shun you. If you don't show up to YOLO, the program
Oh.
shuns you.
Second part, since we're talking about social events, you might be out of town.
Yeah, yeah.
There is a very important networking event we organize only once in fall, technically once a year, which is Wednesday, October 18th, October 17th, 17th, downtown Fort Lauderdale, YOLO.
I'm here.
He made a comment, you need to reserve your spot. Make a fun comment, if not, we kick you out.
No, the
No.
spot's not important, that you show up is more important.
Show up.
I'd appreciate the
Reserve and
RSVP,
show up.
but show up, it's very important.
Reserve and show up. Let's repeat this again. Reserve and show up. Everyone who knows about our program, it's a Wednesday.
And it's after our class is over, right? It's after this
It's in
class
the
is
bi-week of classes. It's after this class, before the next one starts.
Perfect. That's a good time to party.
Huh? All the board members are usually showing up in some fashion.
Oh, yeah.
Co-workers of board members show up. YOLO is right next door to Styles headquarters. So everyone who's involved with us will show up.
Head of HR.
Head of HR, design team. We have 2 board members working at Styles. We have alumni working at Styles. You will find alumni that graduated like 2 or 3 years ago and show up, and you're like, where are you at right now? Oh, I'm working here and there. So they're coming as judges. Great repeat. You're going to see, let's say, Kyle Thompson. Kyle graduated like 2 years ago. Works for Moss Construction. You want to have an internship at Moss Construction? Maybe you want to have a cup of coffee with Kyle and talk about that. Maybe he can make that introduction. GIS geeks are showing up. Last time at YOLO, I had a GIS director of one of my board members. We giggled for 10 minutes with a cocktail. And I had like 2 or 3 job interviews for students later up, lined up. I have a student still working with them. This is a perfect, served on a golden platter networking opportunity with no pressure, but leaving the impression, hi, my name is Thomas, I do have a business card. I would like to have lunch with you sometime. Or talk, or give you a phone call to fine-tune my resume. Can I send that to you? Remember, we also have our mentoring program. So if you're a student of age, as in last summer and or already in spring, this is a great chance to call up your mentor and say, hey, are you coming? I am planning to come. Let's have a drink in a social setting with all the other ones.
Not like that, don't say it like that.
Well, I give you guys the ideas of that you should not be afraid of that event. Yeah? Don't want to reach out, don't want to make suggestions. Yeah? Just say, mark your calendars, communicate with Ryan about this. This is the most easiest way outside of the classroom to say hi to a potential network connection. Okay? The food is great. Parking is right behind the building. No excuses. I will be there. Ryan is at the door.
I'll not be at the door.
You do?
Bouncer?
I don't know. Party planner.
Any questions about the battle plan so far? Yes, please.
So, do we know who's going to be showing up and who would be willing to be a mentor when they're showing up to that event?
Good question. Mentorships are usually a little bit delegated between conversations of Fred Foggy and I, because I have you before, and then Fred and I will take a look at who would be a good match with who. Because he knows the board members in detail, I have met you guys, so there is certain match-ups. Most of the time it's perfect. And it's not just 1 or 2 semesters, it's beyond that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's really cool. It's not, but again, if you miss, let's say in your context, if you miss YOLO, that's still okay. It's independent from the mentor program. But it's one of the big plus points we have in this program. We team up our board members with what?
I can test that. You gotta show YOLO. There's nothing. You don't get a mentor. No, I'm just kidding. Show YOLO.
Don't confuse me like this.
No, it's, you get mentors.
You get mentors. This is one of the great advantages in this program. You get mentors that are leaders in the community and in the industry. So there are certain preferences. I can see to whom I would like to team you up as an example. As an example, Steve and Noah. They had the same mentor. They had Terry Stiles as a mentor. Finding funding for your startup company means you need to do networking. You need to be a competent person that someone says, I'm going to drop $1 million into your bank account. I'll back you up with that project. That is the first step. Field trip, small social thing. YOLO is a social thing, but it's great for networking.
For the field trip, is the school providing the transportation, or we have to drive?
No, it's individual transportation because we kind of ceased the class here, and then because we split in all directions. I do encourage to carpool, makes life easier a little bit. If everything completely blows up, I could provide 1 or 2 seats. I will have 1 pint probably, and we'll leave. I don't know yet. Depends. I have a bunch of the alumni said, hey, what are we doing afterwards? We'll go for dinner. So I might use that to socialize with them. I don't know. But we can organize unofficial carpooling. We typically do not organize van trips or stuff like this. It will take 2 weeks of organizing it. You all have to sign the transportation waiver and all the craziness, and the only person legit allowed to transport people in a passenger van is me in the program. And it's like 6 or 7 seats possible. So it's not really extremely, in the past it was way more convenient to say, let's meet there, be on time, don't drive crazy. If happens to be an accident, give us a call if we know what's going on. So, some trade-offs in that. But good question, thank you. All right, you guys are ready for some law?
Oh, yeah.
John is like, oh my God, first year law school again.
First week.
I hope it's more than just first week. If I type in my password the right way, then it will. Ryan will help you guys to find all these answers.
I have the answers, right?
Law. Where's law? This might be actually.
Another good point away.
Zoning, background. What is zoning? Any idea what is zoning? You are not going to be asked.
Zoning is controlling what can be done in certain areas.
Good. Good stuff. Zoning is the law. That's super simplified. All right? So, next part is, well, if zoning is the law, and we talk about power to zone, because every time we talk about a zoning as in the context of we have a land use plan. Usually it's an existing land use plan that is shown, and then a future land use plan showing the changes you want to do. Yeah? And then you have, in a comprehensive plan, you usually have a so-called zoning map. And it's not a map. The zoning map is not a map because it's actually a legal description of, let's say, a whole binder like this, full of regulations. Yeah? The zoning map shows in yellow a residential zone with a specific density. There will be like a page or 20 pages of legal text defining what is allowed or shall be built in that area. So when we talk about density, all density is usually defined through a zoning code. Zoning code is like the tax code. It's not updated on a regular basis. When it's updated, it's not necessarily rewritten. So the last 10, 15 years, you have seen a lot of municipalities or real estate people complaining about the idea zoning needs to change, needs to be simplified. Do your tax return on one page. Why can't you do a zoning application on one page? Yeah? Why do you need to hire a land use lawyer for what? $400, $500 an hour? Or more? To write that 5 paragraphs you need to have to be successful in your planning, planning a zoning meeting. Yeah? Because depending on the power of zone to zone, the process is also declared how this works. Yeah? Zoning is an exercise of the government's police power. Nobody would have thought about that. If you talk about police power, you think about a black and white police car with lights behind you. Sir, you did a speeding ticket. That's the different policing power. The power of governmental authority to provide health, safety, and welfare. So when we talk about law, the certain soundbite is very important. Health, safety, and welfare. So if something goes against wealth, safety, and welfare, it's probably going to be bad for the community, or what we call the better good, the public good. Yeah? Health and safety is a public good. Firefighters, police force is a public good for you. Yeah? Let's take the firefighters. They come out to help you with the fire in your backyard, or track you out of your burning house. Yeah? They also come to your house and say it's unsafe because you have too many bushes and brushes in the backyard that are dry. If you live in Colorado, you might want to remove them because they're going to go lit up in fire and half of the subdivision goes to that as well. Yeah? That's what we call wildfire mitigation, safety mitigation. Health, the same thing. Health department checks your food places. If folks are unsafe and unhealthy in the food place, they might shut that down. Remember in New York, I think they had a food rating as well to show this is a great place, this is not a great place. The health, safety, and welfare is the important part. And you will see, since it's about lawyers, they're always fighting about the interpretation of that. Yeah? There's no other way to explain that in a non-legal way. There will be always discourse about that, always a friction zone. Yeah? That's actually a slide from Idaho. It's the same way. Why did this in Idaho?
Why did you mention that second bullet point?
Because that used to be a slide I taught in a different state, and this is not the slide I was supposed to have here. But it's okay. There are different ways. Police power is interesting because you need to understand where you live. Different entities have different law enforcement levels, as an example. Yeah? It's not just state police, state troopers. It's not just necessarily the local police department, but you also can live in a county where the sheriff's department has superseding function. Is that the case? That's the case in Broward County. Yeah? So you can have the sheriff come by and the local police, because they have different hierarchies along different regulations. All right. Type of government. Is that the white color? Just for the 18th. All right. Type of government. So, based on the constitutional framework, I'll jump here a little bit, a few things. Yeah? Part from the state comes from the constitution, with statutes, and other regulations. That means we have now so-called political subdivisions. Do you have any idea of a political subdivision? Close? And special districts. Huh? Not really an unknown part. But the unknown part is that this is actually coming from 2 articles of the Constitution, and that's how it trickles down into all these little elements. Yeah? Again, you're not just looking at counties and cities. Yeah? You're looking at parishes, which is more a southern Louisiana element. Yeah? And then you look at special districts. Do you have any example for a special district?
Water district?
Washington, D.C.
Yes, Washington, D.C. Water district is usually the idea of sewer district and something like that. Like across political boundaries, yet a specific utility function. Let's say an example, in Cincinnati you have, Hamilton County, Ohio, you have the MSD, Metropolitan Sewer District, that entails an entity that is interacting with multiple entities across space.
And so they get jurisdiction to do what they want in their respective area?
There's some regulatory jurisdiction in that context, exactly. And John, if I use the wrong legal language, you jump in, please. All right?
He's not going to jump
he's the only member of the Florida bar in this room. Is he? Yeah. All right. Good. So if you look at this kind of context, you already figure out, okay, there are lots of layers to that cake we call zoning powers. Okay? How are we going to deal with that? Well, first of all, we have legislative action, and then we have administrative decisions. Yeah? The administrative action, legislative action, is adopt a new law, amend a new law, existing law. In the zoning context, remember I said the zoning map itself is law. That means once you say we're going to change a zoning district, you need to update that map too. The map is the visual representation of the current existing zoning ordinances and law in your municipality. That means if you have a city council meeting on Monday and you say, hey, let's change the zoning code, there's certainly some grace period depending on which state you live in. Yeah? But at some point of time, you need to have the zoning text and or map updated. If you don't, it can be costly. Because if a developer comes in and says, I want to buy the land and it's currently zoned as YZ, they're buying this with the good faith of that current zoning code displayed in that text, written into that deed, written on, displayed on that map. Alright? Most of the Supreme Court cases we are going to do tonight or today is bought property then, code has changed, new code prohibits me to the full economic value of my property, and therefore it's a taking or the attempt to take my property. And therefore I sue you. Maybe I win, maybe I'm not. Whatever comes out, new Supreme Court case to deal with a zoning law. And there are a lot. If you want to dig in deeper on that, I have a bunch of zoning law books, Mandela, cases of zoning, that big, awesome reads, highly detailed. I don't know if you have Mandela, do you have the zoning laws? I have 1 or 2, 3 copies. You can have one. Might be 9th edition out of the 10 which is out there. But I have like a whole shelf of each edition because they update that all the time. That means also that we have administrative actions. someone is doing this job, the application of existing standards and criteria to a particular situation. Well, if it's about administration, someone needs to make a decision. Yeah? A zoning variance. Hey, this is not working in my way. Can we do a alternation of this? Can we wiggle the room as a one-time special case? Yeah? Conditional use. I didn't drop that out from the other slides. But let's go back to the variance. What could be another example for the variance?
Setbacks.
Setbacks, yeah, depends where you're at. Parking could be, yeah. Fence lines could be, put up your 6-foot privacy fence. You're asking for a fence permit. If it's not written in the zoning, if it's written obviously.
Size of the secondary structure on the property.
Yes. And again, in this case, you need to go through this process. You apply for it, you go through a hearing, you will have people that are allowed to say veto. You will have that P&C folks that say veto to that and say, hey, that's not the way we want that. Yeah? Because again, you are shaping in the long term the sense and quality of the community. Yeah? If I allow now everyone to build 6 feet high white privacy fences, well, I'm 6'1", but think about that. Yeah? Where is that neighborhoodliness and friendliness? The idea of what Kevin Lynch says in his book about talking to your neighbor. You talk to your neighbor not behind a fence like this. You yell at them. Or you maybe step on the ladder and talk to them. Tool Time did that. Yeah? My old neighbor did that too. My old neighbor did that over our fence. We had a 6-foot fence in one corner. He stepped over that all the time. Yeah? Like this. He was not keen to walk around the corner and be in the front yard. Yeah? Fine. Can do that. It's a personal choice. However, there are different ways to deal with all this. Yeah? Conditional use is interesting because you get a use granted, a land use or usage of the land under specific conditions. I don't want to go too much in detail what type of conditions that can be, what type of examples that can be. Conditional use could be like a temporary child care in a residential area. Could be an example of a small place of religious gathering in a neighborhood until the community moves on to a larger place, of like a community center. Yeah? The moment the conditions of that granted CU, conditional use changed, the CU is voided. Yes, please.
Is that like a pop-up shop? Would it be a CU? I'm kind of wondering what, like, how to.
Yeah, but highly determined in a legal context and regulated. There are also deadlines on that. They are not granted for all the time. You can limit them. You can say, okay, fine, you have a year for your gatherings, and then you have to move it out. Yeah? If you stop having your religious gatherings in a neighborhood garage, if you stop that for some period of time, which is a discussion point, then you void that CU as well. I had a CU for a guy who had an old barn in the backyard, who used to be a manufacturing place. Old barn, had some manufacturing still going on, but it was a business on and off. And some neighbors complained about some machinery running. And based on the grandfathered conditions back then, that town granted the conditional use, saying if you stop this for a specific time, they said if you're not running these machines for like 3 months, the business has been vacated, therefore the use has been voided. Well, that also differs in the interpretation from municipality to municipality, and the appeals process is different from state to state. As an example, in the state of Delaware, if you deal something on the local level, if you don't like it, you're not going to the next high entity, you go to the so-called Supreme Court. Yeah? The state of Ohio, you go to what was called the Court of Appeals and deal with all these different instances. Yeah? So this is tough love if you don't get the stuff right. Remember we talked about no-go and no-go decision points in real estate? If you mess up your zoning application, you can get delayed by easy half a year, depending on how much traffic in that city exists in paperwork. How long does it take you to get a permit, zoning permit?
Zoning it depends on the complexity, but you're looking at, probably about a year.
Yeah, and he's doing great things with Habitat. He's not the evil developer everyone hates. That should not matter anyhow.
Is that your time frame contingent upon the style of zoning you're trying to change from, or is that just a pretty average standard
Well,
thing?
if it's controversial, it could take you 5 years.
Right.
Yeah.
The building code said it was 14 for their turnaround, 14 months. I thought it was impressive.
Yeah. So that comes down to the idea of communicating with your zoning people. It's so tight. Like communication with your planning department. If you start thinking to do business in a certain area, then have an appointment with the planning director and tell the planning director, hey, we're a young company, we're looking for 2 or 3 different places right now here. They are for sale or upcoming for sale. Can we have a conversation about the zoning history and project history on that site? We didn't get him in, he didn't want to show up because it was so complicated with the background, but I asked the zoning director or the planning director of town of Davie for our project in spring and say, hey, would you like to join us? Actually invited him for the last meeting, just being a guest. And he said, hey, I can't do that. But I went there, talked to him about the site. It's like, yeah, we know that site. Not just by request. No, they had a bunch of projects already going through, not going through. A good zoning director, a good planning director will be able to tell you stories about every piece of dirt in his or her town.
What about when they get fired? That works if you've got someone who's been there around the block a long time and grew up in the area, but what happens, when the
new hire needs to learn a story.
I guess.
Got it. I think planning departments are knowledge base on personal knowledge or good notes in sites. But if you have a bunch of notes here on the site that develops and for the next 30 to 40 years it stays an office building, you don't need to, it's always those little gimmicks and little stories you can find. Small towns are better than large towns because the leadership may not be changing as rapidly or because of career development. So whenever you go home in a smaller town or visit a smaller town, I encourage you guys, swing by, take a look, do planning and zoning meeting. They're publicly posted. You are invited to go there as public. Yes?
I've got a question about, is there any correlation to, say I want to do something new, like a new proposed idea, new type of use, new type of construction, whatever it is.
Nope.
Is there more pushback in a larger city? I mean, I'm thinking barriers to entry. There might be more bigger city, more rules, versus a smaller city, maybe less rules. What do you think? Is there any correlation?
Hard to say on a hypothetical.
Okay.
All right, let's answer this in a different way. If you're a well-established company and you have also the means, economic means, and labor force to back that up, that's the difference, let's say, a Stiles Corporation and our dear friends that just started a company in market, just in volume. They're doing like $1 million or $2 million project, Stiles are putting like 400 million in place, or what is Star? 200 million. Let's make up numbers.
Rolo?
The Rolo is what?
460.
Huh?
460.
460.
Yeah, they probably do.
So there are different finance levels and different power levels for a project, but it doesn't mean that you still get treated the same way. It's a law. The application still needs to be in place. You need to say, this is the kind of rezoning I want to do. These are the ideas I want to put in place. Are you going to be experimental with new designs? After very long conversations, probably not anymore. There's a way to do things and a way to dream about things. The idea is to find a way to do the things, to stay in business, and push the envelope a little bit, maybe add a little bit. Design components is a huge thing. most of the modern rewritten codes establish the idea that some design guidelines can be established or applied. Yeah? Some design guidelines are just BS and are forcing into this kind of same kids' house, Barbie doll, playhouse look as the same way. Why? Because that developer, let's say for student housing and some affordable housing, is using the same layout, the same ugliness out in facade, and the same painting in variations on it. I'm not picking here on a regional one, I'm picking on the guys who are like developing around the Norwood example for our sketch. Someone picked up that there is students housing for Xavier University in Cincinnati. If you go that route down the street and all the blocks that have been developed as the same ugly design, there might be great apartments for you for 4 years or 2 years to live in. But you drive down the street, particularly if you live there for 5 years, across all the places in town, and you look at what has changed, and you're like, okay, fly me back to the hurricane. Yeah? It's like the chance between ugly buildings or Irma. At that moment, I really wanted to go Irma. Not happy. Urban design components, urban design components can be sometimes so brutal. Urban design committees that are sometimes subcommittees to planning and zoning and or to council, depending on the structure. Sometimes you wish that you would have seen a lecture like this or some PowerPoints like this today, and they say, okay, fine, I'm not doing that. I don't put between a beautiful red brick facade building, 100 years old, I don't put a fancy concrete reinforced, lots of class office building without a component that combines the characters in the neighborhood or just along the street. You're not going to put a bright yellow house if everything is like in fall, no, make a difference. A bright frog green house if everything is by history, all like a pastel fall colors to make up an extreme difference. Or what we have seen in Europe because of war and other regulations. Because of war, inner towns have been destroyed, burned out by bombs. With concrete coming into town, you see historic downtowns with a 5-floor concrete building that used to be a department store. Now bankrupt for years, decades. You still have high-tech German concrete reinforced steel, concrete standing there as a perfect ruin of how to kill a whole downtown with an ugly building. The city of Jena is great for that. City of Bayreuth is great for that. I think I have 1 or 2 pictures today. So you can destroy thousands of years of urbanism with one freaking ugly building. I'm not apologizing for that kind of language. But you had
to add on to that, it also depends a lot what you were talking about. Some cities have historical districts, historical zoning, so you have to be able to design in a certain way. And if you are changing anything from the building footprint that was there or is historically there, there's going to be a lot of pushback, and that can always take more time, because I was taking a couple of classes in preservation law in my undergrad, and it really, really, like, the meetings would go on for hours just about one property.
Right.
And they won't even vote. Out of the 10, 15 different properties they would sit down and talk about, only 2 or 3 would get passed. They would be
because
like,
something does not add up in the idea of how to historically preserve something. Mention the city of Jena, J-E-N-A, in East Germany. I have friends there. They try to rehab a house, historical district, actually historic property, that old. Historic stairway, only to be restored in a specific way to conserve the original wood in it, not to be sanded down by a certain amount of blah blah. It's a long story, old, but it took them, I think, almost a year to get the stairway in place and reconstructed based on the historic guidelines. It goes like this, that you have to have the specific type of lead in the same color if you want to repaint. None of you, have you met Dave Hart? former town manager of the little city of Smyrna, my mentor, my old boss. He had
Smyrna?
5, Smyrna, Delaware.
Oh,
I did tell you guys about the regional distribution center with Walmart once, did I? Sometime, yeah. This guy had 5 different colors on his house, 125, a house of 125, more than 100 years old house. For painting the facade, he had to go through a historic preservation council. Huh? Small little things.
and they have a very select few list of colors. Like in Savannah or in Charleston, you can only choose from, I think, 100 different paint colors.
Same thing here. A homeowner association is somewhat a legal extension of all of what we're going to present today. It's a private arm of that legal representation. Good luck with painting your house pink if your homeowners association doesn't like that. You need to go and give paperwork to your homeowners association and then to the city for a building permit or repaint permit, depending where you live. Huh? In case you haven't done that yet, find the city you live in on the web page, go to the building department and look up your address. Even if you rent or bought it, if you bought it, you should have done it anyways. Or you can see what kind of permits have been on your place. Slightly different, but do your due diligence even on the places you live. You will be surprised. All right, speaking of surprise, comprehensive plan. We did that a little bit. One slide. The comprehensive plan is the idea of a vision and its operationalization, an interpretation of what this community will look like and wants to develop into over the next 15 to 20 years. We did see that mini video about Fort Lauderdale 2035, wasn't it? That video is kind of the tip of the iceberg of what could be like multiple binders full of work, how the city envisions their idea. Comprehensive plan is dictated, and the format of the comprehensive plan is dictated by which state you're in, which county you live in, what kind of federal support you want. You know? And the places I used to work and live, comprehensive plans have been in a different way. Could be also in compliance, not just in accordance to a comprehensive plan. If I don't want to look at a real estate developer, how a city thinks they want to be in 20 years, I need to sit down and read the comprehensive plan. If you think about working for a company or a city, particularly governmental development, if you think you can go into the city planner's or city manager's office to apply for a city government job, and you have not read the comprehensive plan, don't even show up for your interview. You gotta need to know where and how Broward County or the city of Davie wants to go in the next 15 to 20 years. Why? Because that gives you power of knowledge to make an argument how your project will benefit into and support the vision of the community.
That's the answer I was looking for.
Yeah? You're not going into a board meeting not knowing what the board's opinion of the day or to that topic is. You're not going to jump into ice cold water about not being prepared how to deal with ice cold water. So why would you consider to go to a planning and zoning meeting ice cold, not being prepared? Not knowing what's in the comprehensive plan means you have zero interest in that community. You're ignorant. And maybe arrogant, depending on the tie you're wearing. Huh? Fun fact, I have a friend who is since years a planner for a small, who used to be fastest growing town in the state of Delaware. Zero planning background, comes actually from public administration. And one of the reasons why he got that job, because he was one of the four or five applicants for interview who read that comprehensive plan, who knew that this is the direction where the city and within the county they wanted to go. They told him that a few weeks after his hire. You have been the only one that did that. I told him 3 days before the interview, you need to read the comprehensive plan. Does this mean you need to know all the comprehensive plans of all municipalities here in the region? No. We have a board member who does practice in Pembroke Pines. He doesn't need to read Davie. of Lauderdale by the Sea. Hey, Posen needs to know what's going on in Pembroke Pines and how Pembroke Pines wants to grow within and outside of boundaries. Yeah? If you want to do projects in Oakland, you gotta be in Oakland. Swing by the coffee shop for coffee in the department and check this place out. Go and read the deed. Don't send a lawyer. Really show up and say, hey, I'm interested to buy this property. I would like to see the deed and all the files on that property. Takes a moment. Best is to make an announcement prior. In a small community, you can do that. You sit down. If you have questions, you can ask them kindly. So suddenly this whole thing works in a different way. Why? Because after the comprehensive plan and you're doing your work, there will be at some time, there will be a planning and zoning meeting. And in the P&C meeting, a staff report is filed. You're going to write an application, you submit all the materials, staff will read that. Staff will look, if in accordance to the comprehensive plan, are you in compliance? Are you in compliance with all the current zoning regulations? Yeah? And staff will end, if they are really, really tough on you, they will end with staff has no suggestions against this. Staff can support in the current framework this application. You want that staff can support this. We don't have anything against that. That means you talk to the staff, you just did not drop off the plans and come back 6-8 months later for the meeting. Yeah, as a consistent talk to the planning community. Yeah? You demonstrated you talk to your neighbors. Yes, I purchased this property, I would like to rezone it, I would upzone it in a higher density. I did talk to my neighbors prior to that. Yeah? They are okay. You can state that. Maybe your neighbor already writes a letter of support. This is great if you have a letter of support in your application file. Yeah? The same thing like we do in this urban planning exercise. You have a homeowner association that has certain needs. You have the skateboard kids that have certain needs. You want to do it. Are you going to be okay today? Or you want to just flat out and... Okay, good motivation. I just look at you, it's like she's suffering a bad cold or something.
She got me sick. Dude, it was you.
Hey, no, we're not here.
She's in my group.
We are not
I'm
there
sitting here
yet.
with a fever going, oh my god, please stop talking.
Hint, by the way. Hint, by the way.
Oh.
Personal experience.
You got her sick. Anyway.
Personal experience. Crunch time for your classes. Crunch time for your classes. Try to get sleep and vitamins. Like literally those bubbly water things, vitamins. It is additional important need to maintain health mentally and physically. If you skip the gym then 1 or 2 times, fine. My dentist has sleep and vitamins. That's one key to healthy dental stuff. So I apply that for my classes, that helps. Also make sure that you get a whole pint glass of water in the evening too. So you hydrate. But health advice is 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Again, comprehensive plan, read this. You don't have to read it as in survive a test on it and write 100 pages exam on it. You have to have an overview, what is important for this community. Just for the fun of it, read how they think their emergency management will be managed in the next years. Fire and policing nowadays pops up in the comprehensive plan. Didn't do that years ago. If you're in the Intermountain West, in Western states, wildfire states, is a section about wildfire mitigation. Because it's essential to what? The health, the safety, and the welfare of the community. It's not just a single property, it's the whole community thing. Innovative land use controls. I'm too fast, speaking too fast. I'm trying to get through, I have 42 more slides, now only at slide 10, so I gotta run a little bit. 42 more. I can post these, this is buzzword stuff. This is repeat what was in the readings. Yeah? Innovative land use codes, overlay zones. We mentioned that already with design code, design overlays, form-based code comes in similar idea. Yeah, we have famous overlay zones like the water protection areas, coastal zone management area. We have a Supreme Court case where in California the coastal protection zone was changed over the years, was extended inland, therefore building and construction in that zone was not anymore allowed. Therefore, this one poor guy did not get the permit immediately. And he said, nay, that's not the way this works. Okay? Noise protection buffers is interesting. You live in an airport area. Yeah? In addition to so, that's the best way to say it, because it lays over an area that already has a zoning code. Also, legally, you have to understand, since 1924, Euclid versus the city of versus the city of Euclid. That's a Supreme Court case, you need to understand that it's in the slides. Every zoning code is parcel property specific. Overlay zoning is in zones, but is read down into the specific parcel. Why? It's like a GS problem. Is the parcel element of that overlay zone? Yes, it is. Therefore, the overlay zone is granted. Well, this is a little bit antique, but it's kind of like CU, conditional uses. Floating zones. This is where you can say there is a temporary adjustment done in terms of a hazard, in terms of a temporary event. Best example is churches. Depending where you live, churches grow in a neighborhood. They don't always have this huge Roman Catholic cathedral style. There's also a really great piece to read an article. It's called Places of Worship, which talks about the churches that pop up in vacant retail or office space, like literally in the windows on curbside. Yeah? And how they now help to foster the neighborhood. Because you're not going to mug someone in front of a church, are you? They do, but it's a really great read, a little bit dated, about 10, 12 years old, I think. Dealing with places of worship as in neighborhood stability. If you're interested, drop me an email, I'll find it and send it to you. Yeah? There's, again, the idea is you're going to plan for something which already has conditional use, and you add that in there. So you're planning for the potential. In case in my residential neighborhoods, someone wants to create a church, we could allow that as a floating zone. Therefore, the option to create a conditional use for that specific property and purpose is allowable. Special case. Performance standards. Same thing. Some smart person went down the rabbit hole and said, we are not talking anymore about a specific parcel type, a specific land use. Some land uses perform better than others. Then you say, okay, fine, let's deal with this maybe in design, maybe in flexibility. Again, this is a rough teaser of legal frameworks available as tools for you, given or not given in the municipalities you want to do business with. But it's interesting that you can say, wait a minute, there's a connectivity or stormwater management, connectivity, walkability, bike lanes, complete streets. It might be helpful to have an understanding on this to say, hey, we want to do the street design on our property a little bit different and within the adjacent properties. That needs a little bit helpful in the municipality and the approvals from you guys, but it would be better for connectivity. We are on a main campus of college, of university. If you don't talk connectivity in a college environment or towards a college environment, then you are not understanding the concept here why you could present performances. Performance standard as in the land users on that site can do better. All right, Urban design regulations. Everyone with a design architecture background, you take a 5-minute break because you're like, oh my god, it's undergraduate class again. Yeah? Traditional neighborhood design, TODs with transit-oriented design. The complete idea as in, let's make it look better, let's make it more compact. We have done so many sins of development in the past decades. We need to face the consequences and alternate. That's the reason why it says reduce sprawl on this one. Yeah? We just can't do the cookie cutter, ugly building look 150 units the same way. We want to do something different. Your customers might not like that anymore. All right? What else do we have? TODs, PODs. We can just run through those. So the buzzwords, those are actually really explained again in the readings. Okay? The notes for that slide is look up TOD, POD. If you just Google it or download the PDFs from the web page, it's helping. Plan unit development is more a large scale element. TOD is really, that's a typo, TOD is really, really cool because the example of the Brightline station. The Brightline folks really came to the board and said, any of the places, Lauderdale and Miami, and said, listen, we are our TOD because we are a rail company that wants to have a station. How can we make that great? Yes, we did the field trip there, the station was closed at that time. Well, they just finished construction. But let's do this. Let's hop on the train, run down, do a walk around, get into the food court. The Frost Science Museum is like 4 blocks walking away or something with decent shoes, easy peasy. Do a day trip, winter break, Thanksgiving.
Take the train from where?
Fort Lauderdale or West Palm.
I'm usually for West Palm in a couple weeks.
Where Fort Lauderdale?
It's north, it's like on Broward, I think.
No, north of Las Olas, Broward, yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to find. And there's a high-speed bullet train. You have pretty much no stop until Miami. No? So, I don't know how much to ride. It's like 15 or 20 bucks.
15 to 30.
Depending on what daytime. But just the idea of a fairly brand new train, run down, enjoy that. It's like it's better seating than in an airplane. No? Do that. Explore the station. There's a huge food court and all that. Some office space around. There are American Airlines Arena is like
Miami?
Yeah, Miami Central is the place called Miami Central. The airlines arena is close by as in walk 2 or 3 blocks.
There's a commuter train too.
That's the metro mover, what it's called. It's close by. The connecting elements. You can, in theory, can go out to the airport too. It's really cool. You don't have to be a friend of rail to get amazed for that trip. Again, my example would be, let's walk a little bit more, walk through a really great front park, and hit the the Frost Science Museum or the the George Perez Arts Museum, which is closed on Wednesdays. Yeah? So that's the reason why I ended up in the Frost Science, because I'm awesome when it comes to playing stuff. But think about that. Explore ideas. Find examples of transit-oriented design here in your neighborhoods. We have one attempt across the street. That bus shelter and the bus stop with the parking garage next to it. It's great signage, a big parking garage that says bus shelter. I don't see a bus moving there. So great design, even like bays to park the buses and turn around, but apparently the routing doesn't work, the schedule. All right? Small scale, neighborhood level, connecting to other centers, plan your development, more larger thing. If you have a chance to travel worldwide, and you have a chance to just explore the world with Google and videos, take a look at Singapore. Everything in Singapore is transit-oriented. If they put a new town in place, they start how to add transit to that action, to that area. It's the subway station or a train station, then the neighborhood center where you can do some shopping and some office retail, and then you get the residential units. They are on an island, they are a little bit constrained with land, but they're having some ideas how to deal with that. But it starts with, how do we move our people? Linkages, circulation, flow systems. Huh? Old guy. This book is older than the state of Singapore. Huh? But it's still working. All right. Phase development, we can skip that. We talked so many times about that. Aggregate facility ordinance or management. You can't plan for 15,000 people if you don't plan for the sewage capacity of 15,000 people in your town. If your sewer plant only makes 10,000 people, you cannot grow fast beyond the 10,000. Huh? Get stuck, really stuck. Huh? How do you circumvent that? You make contracts with sewer treatment. You have the county clear your sewage if needed, but that's a cost. But let's skip. For the time being, we have more fun topic. All right, PUDs. I'll give you a visual idea of the PUD. Again, it's more a regional concept here. Fully developed site, this is the cookie cutter effect. Best bang for the buck. This is the first attempt where you're like, shucks, how can you live there? Nothing left, everything is green grass, homeowner association. That's not really preferred. I have other language for that, but I can't use that in class. And I'll show you pictures, aerial photography. This is bad. This is not better, really, but a little bit better. It does reduce the amount of dead-end streets, if you count them, absolutely. But again, if you live here, this is your driveway. It's connected still here, but it actually takes the existing land, vegetation, etc. into account and maintain horse pasture. There's a farm element here. Maintain existing woods as buffer. As vegetation, natural resources as an element. If you would sit down and count, this might be actually more parcels to build on than this one. Why? Because you changed your lot sizes and you're selling this to the consumers. You're selling this as the more livable, more natural, close-up environment. Wouldn't it be great to sit on the back porch here and have a deer come out when you have a drink in the evening or morning coffee? Everyone is excited if they suddenly see wildlife in the backyard. You won't see anything here. Depends where you live, depends on your lifestyle. Condominium people in Miami don't like both of them. No? He's like, no. All right, fine. You did that. Want to talk about this? Moratorium. The M word in planning. M word. It's bad. If you sit in a planning commission and someone says, I think we need to have a moratorium, dead quiet in that room like you went now. Dead quiet. Why?
Things stop.
The moratorium is the emergency full stop out of light speed. You pull and you stop. For administrative purposes, this means that whatever is in the pipeline will be used and fixed. If I call a moratorium on Tuesday night, applications of Monday and Tuesday will be included. If you show up on Wednesday morning at 8, here's my $10 million project, you're not even get accepted, depending on how they deal with the language of the moratorium. Which also means there are the Supreme Court cases we're not going to cover, but I would like to point out Tahoe, Lake Tahoe, is not just famous for its landscape. It's also famous for at least 2 Supreme Court cases using a moratorium and the abuse of the governmental power in the moratorium. Because they not just did hold the process, they violated the holding period of the process. Because you just can't say, full stop, that's it. You need to put a time and duration to that. You need to say, we are not going to accept new applications for the next 6 months or for the next year. And the day after that ends, you need to be full back in business. One reason why you will do that is your staff is overworked and you have 150 other things on your plate. Or some of the decisions made are completely capsizing the way the comprehensive plan is going, and you need some revision time and adjustments. Careful adjustments, because if you alter the situation of the state of zoning codes in that process, you might have to feel some backlash because you're making changes. Moratorium is a hot topic. People get fired about that. Not a bad planning application, but that is a bad thing. We all have seen that. NIMBY's not in my backyard. No? To sum this up, to sum this up, I talked about the policing. What? I talked about the policing powers and the constitutional basis for that. So, 14th and 5th Amendment. We had a shout out, yay, eminent domain, public use of land. This is what we're going to take a look at. The due process is regulated in the 14th Amendment. You need to have a specific process you need to hold to get done. Simple thing. If there is a zoning application pending for a piece of property, there needs to be public notice on time in a public available newspaper and or post. Usually both. It doesn't say you need to have the front page. Small print and the fine remarks on page number 30 is good enough. Usually it's like local news, governmental news. No? Usually what you see is a piece of paper, notice, public notice of hearing. Small as this, big as a billboard on the side. So if you would walk by, you will see, oh, they're doing a hearing about this property with the following applicant. No? Part of the due process. Why? Because if I'm a neighbor and I have not been notified or not even been public noticed, I can go back in and say, whatever you guys decided last Monday, I veto. And you have a full standing, in legal terms, full standing that you have been not included in that process. That can derail a lot. If you're thinking about development and food and alcoholic licensing, depending on the state regulations, you need to notify X amount of all of the households in X thousand feet away from a property. Talking about the option, how to use GIS. Are you going to invite everyone 500 feet walking distance or 500 foot radial distance as crow flies with a circle drawn over the property? Makes a difference, includes and excludes people. Has not been contested yet. That's actually interesting how the application of GIS in terms of legal permits can be misused or not. Something to look forward. Do you know anything about that? Like if you have, say, 1,000 feet distance from the property, notify all property owners about a change, let's say, in your liquor license or the application of your liquor license. Do you measure 1,000 feet as a circle around, or walking and driving in 1,000 feet distance? Because if you do that calculation, you probably have less people in walking distance you need to notify.
They use the rings now. They use the rings now.
Oh, but the better measurement is actually the drive time along the street network, because you're not going to climb over 5 neighborhood properties to get to the bar. Yeah? You're going to walk the curbside, both ways. Yeah? So it would be interesting to see if there's how much discrepancy is there. Fine.
These amendments, these are constitutional amendments?
Yep. Comes from the 5th and the 14th Amendment. And we're going to take a look closer to these two. Yeah? Fine. we can skip that. I kind of included this guy because it's about flooding. And the technical issue here was the canal was constructed by the government to improve navigation, overflowed intermittently all the time, but not all the time, just once in a while. And the guy says, hey, it's flooding. That's kind of just a picture. It's flooding, and while it's flooded, you built the canal, and you're responsible for my loss in property during that time. And the idea was, no, they are not, because it's temporarily. That's something you can plan for, and does not call for a complete diminishing value of your economic means of that property. I need to demonstrate a total loss of your economic value of that property, to have a takings case. So, if we talk about takings cases, we're going to have 1926, which of Euclid versus Amber reality. To make this short, that's an example from the book, if I recall right. Railroad, different zones on this property, a frontage zone here, and the idea was to build this out and develop. And the city came out with a specific zoning code, had a form of zoning that is known as cumulative zoning. Like they start to stack this up farther away from Euclid Avenue, you increase the different zone. Zoning was cumulative in the sense that the land use was permitted in all districts with a lower number, were also permitted the higher number districts. Not going into the specifics. However, the guy said, well, you're restricting me with different zones on my property in the full fulfillment of the economic means and value of my property. The city of Euclid actually won. But as a result of that, it was also recommended that you have to say, let's have this as easier as one zone per property, so you don't have graduated zones in between. Euclidean zoning comes from that type, from that Supreme Court. One zone, main zone. One main zone dedicated to the parcel and property. Alright? This is one of the most important things you need to take into account. That was in 1926. This is about 10 years-ish after New York defined its own first new zoning codes and how they decide what's the lot size in Manhattan Island. So this is legally new stuff. Again, diminished value of property is not necessarily constitute a taking. If I reduce your economic value, I'm not going to take it at all. If I drop your value to, let's say, 80%, you still can make 80%. That was at least the part in that ruling. Alright? Regulation is not taking if it serves a rationale related to health, safety of the community. Keep that in mind. Health, safety of the community. Next guy. It's a beach community. Mr. Nolan. You're heading out?
Yes, sir.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
Mr. Nolan is the case of the Coastal Commission. What they basically did is, there's the high tide property line, and they changed the way they counted the beach line and the coastal zone management. Case involved the practice termed exception of requiring developers to help pay for dedicated land for public facilities as part of the development effort. We call it impact fees nowadays. Nolan, a developer, wanted to build a beachfront home, and the California Coastal Commission wanted an easement for public access, beach access, in exchange, that's the important part, in exchange for the building permit, which is now illegal, based on that case. They considered it as a taking, as in the Supreme Court struck down the exception, stating that the Commission did not show an essential connection between the need for beach access and the denial of the permit. That stuff needs to be related. So we had in the beginning, I think Max was it, like how you deal with the commissioners, like shake your hands and one hand helps the other. That's an example as if you want to develop here, you need to give me an easement for beach access and you have to pay for it. And the developer said, no, I'm not going to do that. Let's see you in court. So the result of this might come back when you hear land use regulations with Peter Hand in summer. Result of this, the court created a new standard, the so-called nexus requirement. The requirement states that it has an exception occurs, it must be in response to the specific burdens imposed by the development. So just asking for something is not going to work anymore. But having a conversation that this will be beneficial for the community, directly related to your development and project, is still okay. You still can disagree on that, but it's somewhat okay. Which brings us to the other guy with the bike share, or bike path. Yeah? So Mr. Nolan won that one. The reason why I present these, Nolan, Dolan, and Lucas are the really three big cases when it comes, let's say, to private property passage for the public. And HB 631 is currently in Florida in place, and it's very interesting as well. All right. So the next slide is Mr. Lucas. In Mr. Lucas's case, South Carolina Coastal Commission decided that they move the boundary of the critical area from the 77 Act. Take care, feel better. Okay? They moved that from the 77 Act up with the new Act under 88 and included now the erosion baseline, included property, existing property there. So if you would have bought this,
Oh, the line moves all the way up there.
line moved up there and turned into a no-build zone. Yeah? So the court case is that the case involves beachfront property that was purchased by Lucas 2 years before the adoption of the new shoreline regulations. Well, this guy bought it like what, 1986? Sorry, 68, 86, 86.
Yeah.
He bought those properties and wanted to rehab and rebuild. Yeah? And he bought that stuff after a hurricane. Hurricanes are good for rebuilding. The shoreline requirement prohibited the owner from developing his property in any way. Any way. Not even a parking lot.
You can only own it and pay taxes on it.
Own it, no development, because they moved this to this, all of that here was now a no-build zone. All right? Anyway, Lucas files suit claiming the law constituted takings of his property because the prohibition deprived him of all economically viable use of his property. All economic means to make money off this property have been vanished and voided. All of them, not partial, all of them. After a bunch of rounds, Justice Scalia said at the end, concluded there were at least two discrete categories to deal with this, of regulation that are compensable. One was the physical invasion of the property, and the other was the regulation that denies all economic beneficial or productive use of land. Again, not even a parking lot. So that means, you need to be careful what's going on with your property when you buy it. You need to have a little bit hit the sky to know what's going on in politics. You want to buy this property and they just discussed, I'd say, urban growth boundaries where your property is not going to be allowed anymore to be developed. That's one of the master cases for that. Bought this thing, new regulations came in place, didn't develop within that time frame, and after that you actually have to sue. What else do you do during that time? You're losing money. You're sitting there, you can't develop, you put millions of dollars into that, you're paying interest on it, you have investors who are unhappy, and you have to figure out what's going on. All right? Dolan.
So that Lucas wanted it.
Lucas one. Alright. Dolan. Again, Nolan, Dolan, Lucas. That's the easy way to remember those three guys. Make it short, quit a few things on the things we want to do to have more time with you guys. We had this example of having a nexus, having a test if this is really necessary for the public good, as in health, welfare, safety. Yeah? This case is interesting because they came up, don't have the picture anymore, came up with the idea, this is a Greek. He wants to have an existing store demolished, rebuilt on the side, but the city came up and said, hey, you know what, along that creek we want to build like a greenway, pathway for bicyclists. And basically demanded an easement to get that into the expansion, property expansion. And basically also saying, hey, we grant you this if you grant us this. All right? So-called Nolan test. Yeah? The requirement was related to public concern, but there was no evidence that the requirement addressed these concerns. Great. Cycling is good for the community. In 1994, nobody really cycled. Today, cycling community would have maybe a little bit better view and input. At some point, this is also moved in saying, what's the current state of the communities and society at this time. Again, you come back to the idea, not everything can be defended with health, welfare, and safety. Yeah?
But he owned all the way up to the river. All the way up to the river, he owned that land. So they
He
wanted to
owned
take
that land, but then
They wanted to take it.
they wanted to take it for a public path. And that's the important part. He owned it up to the river. Yeah? In certain states, the river midline is the property line, or the shoreline of a river. And then the question comes in, high waters, low waters, seasons. We're going to have a discussion about high tide, low tide. Wet sand, no wet sand zone. How do we change that? All right? I'm going to skip a few things here before I completely disappear in a coma. All right. Please be aware, I truly urge you guys to read up on this legal stuff a little bit. It's actually somewhat fascinating what type of law cases or court cases are out there and why are people actually suing each other over things when it comes to development. You might want to bribe John with a cup of coffee and he might be able to tell you a bunch of local stories. Debbie Olszewski is a famous land lawyer. She's one great famous land use lawyer here in Broward County, board member of ours. Bribe her for a cup of coffee. It's fascinating. She is a planning person. So, eminent domain. There are 2 or 3 crazy eminent domain cases in the past 15 years. One is the city of New London and Kilo, Suzanne Kilo. Yeah? Story goes by that. Very bad neighborhood, apparently run down, a lot of vacant property somewhere else. Big pharma company was interested to purchase that land to develop a new economic development plan with the city. Yeah? Turn out that the way the city executed eminent domain was rather troublesome. Usually you would make public statements, usually you would execute that in the proper way, you would also try to find a solution between the homeowners, as in, can I buy you out, or that we declare eminent domain, and for a specific price, let's say just compensation, that's a legal term that defines what is the type of compensation, etc., you would execute that.
They made a movie about this called Little Pink Houses.
Oh wait, I got.
What are you gonna say?
I got
Sorry, I don't need that. Step on your.
I got like a 5-minute break to rest my voice and show you a video.
Oh, sorry.
So this rocked the world in planning and development. every time there was a hearing, every time there was something new coming out of the story, people across the nation changed things locally. Story goes, when Kilo was decided in one case or one instance, land use lawyer, a friend of mine in Idaho, was at a cocktail party and the governor said, what can we do about that? Because in certain states, like in the western states, property rights are different. No? They're not as social and community friendly. Trespassing is a huge thing. Was in the news yesterday. Big company from Texas shutting down local forest roads because they're not cleared with easements to pass. That's 2 weeks before hunting season starts. You can believe it. Everyone who wants to pass that street is going to be angry. They literally dig trenches so you can bypass the gates. In a recreational outdoor state. So property rights is going to be interesting. Alright, so what I want to go into do is, I want to go show you like 3 little segments of videos, you know, where Suzette Kilo shows her story and tells the story. I gotta warn you. Isabella, you still awake?
Okay.
You okay? Feedback, let's watch a video. Yeah? There are ways to deal with this, and there are ways they dealt with, like here. I work both sides, government and development. You treat people with respect for communication, and you take care of a few things as in not a good timing to tell you bad news or good news. Gotta be somewhat considerate. They got evictions notice the night of Thanksgiving.
Wow.
Like Wednesday night, happy Turkey Day, pack your things. Yeah?
Wow.
This is not how you deal with this.
That's cold.
You will hear maybe at some time in your career, maybe with Steve, I don't know the perfect details, but if you buy property with existing tenant structure, some of those tenants might move easy, some might not be as easy to get out of your project. That might delay your project line. You know? That turns into a legal issue. Because they might not have the means to move somewhere else, to give it a nice social component. Yeah? But if you have a few $1 million in interest rates piling up, you're not going to be so socially inclusive. But, let's see. Of course.
Suzette Kilo learned in 2005 that the Fifth Amendment ultimately would not protect her home from being seized by a local government.
What? Fifth Amendment takings, okay?
Do you want me to turn off the lights?
Yeah, let's do the turn off the lights. I never this video started with me. Again, Fifth Amendment takings, eminent domain. Yeah? Let's read my first.
Suzette Kilo learned in 2005 that the Fifth Amendment ultimately would not protect her home from being seized by a local government in the name of nothing more than tax revenue. The Supreme Court ruled in Kilo v. City of New London, Connecticut, that private property can be taken for increasing tax revenue. The court used a decidedly tortured definition of public use to arrive at the controversial 5-4 decision. Kilo spoke at the Cato Institute January 27, 2009, at a forum for the book Little Pink House, which tells her story. The full event is available at cato.org.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suzette Kilo, and the government stole my home. First, the municipal government of my hometown, New London, Connecticut, stole it. Then the state of Connecticut said it was legal for them to take it. Finally, the federal government said it was constitutional to steal not only my home, but the homes of all my neighbors, and in fact, anyone's home for the purpose of economic development. Basically, what that means, if someone who can add more to the grand list of your town or city than you and your property can be made history. Even though 40 states have passed legislation offering some protection for home and business owners, don't think your property is safe because it is not. Over 10 years ago, I was lucky enough to find a great deal on a house with a terrific view of the Thames River, the Long Island Sound, and the Atlantic Ocean in New London, Connecticut. I spent every spare moment fixing it up and making it the kind of home I had always dreamed of. I'm sure you've heard the expression, location, location, location. Well, this was the wrong location, only I didn't know it yet. Until I picked up the paper one morning in 1998 and discovered that Pfizer Pharmaceutical was coming to town. And one of the things that Pfizer did not want, according to the Pfizer executive, who just happened to be the husband of Claire Gaudiani, president of New London Development Corporation, was to look out their windows and see tenement buildings. Maybe we did not live in grand manners that the Pfizer executives lived in, but our homes were well cared for, we paid our taxes, and we lived in a neighborhood that was comfortable for us. But we weren't going to be comfortable for long. For 10 long years, we fought to keep our homes, we fought the media, we fought in the media. We fought in the city council and the legislative offices, we fought in the courts, we won the support of the public, but the politicians made our lives hell. Eviction notices were posted on our doors Thanksgiving Eve. Our neighbors' homes were demolished around us. Our streets were shut down. Some of us became ill. Some of us even died. Even the air was difficult to breathe from the demolitions and the blasting around us. But we never gave up because we believed that this land was our land. Until the United States Supreme Court told us and the world differently. What the Supreme Court basically said was our land was only our land until someone else could make better use of it and pay more taxes. Even though we, the plaintiffs in Kelo versus New London case, lost our personal battle, the war is still being fought. As a result of the Supreme Court's unbelievable ruling, a majority of the states that passed legislation offering more protection to American property owners. Probably everyone who has ever given a speech hopes that something he or she says will be worth remembering. And I hope you remember this. If it's true that it takes an entire village to raise a child, then we and our children are in serious trouble. Although 42 states have passed laws providing more protection against the abuse of eminent domain, there are still many places where neighborhoods are destroyed to make way for malls, hotels, and spas. And the people who suffer the most are not only the American children, but also our elderly. Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce Pierce Indian said, "The white man made us many promises, but he kept only one. He said he'd take our land, and he did." This still continues. Let just be the generation, be the one to bring this terrible abuse to an end. Thank you.
Suzanne Kelo was the lead plaintiff in the landmark 2005 Supreme Court case, Kelo v. City of New London, Connecticut. You can hear the full book forum at our website, cato.org.
So, what do you think? Eminent domain, great thing, huh? We can talk about this. We can actually go in the planning department to the local municipality and say, hey, mayor, let's do some economic development. You know what? We just need to get rid of those 3 or 4 houses down the road. And we can use a tool, eminent domain, to do so. This is not the way you do so. The idea of eminent domain is to have, this is technically the last legal option for the municipality to defend the standards of health, safety, and welfare in your community. There are ways now in place that you have to get compensated for, etc. You can't raise the price, they will freeze the price at a certain time. And it's a nasty thing because it's a good tool that has been abused. Yeah? And the story she tells is heartbreaking. And every construction site now you can see a sign, sorry about the noise and the dust, we tried to do our best. They apparently didn't do anything there. Yeah? like literally the house next door, gone. The assignment 2, the sketch plan we did. Remember that little overview picture? Had 3 little homes on there. Everything else was demolished. Another eminent domain case, normal. We'll see about that in a moment. Kilo is so big, I have like little snippets. Has to be in your brain as the master case.
This is the so-called takings clause of the Fifth Amendment. It enshrines your right to private property without undue government interference. Traditionally, takings for public uses included highways, schools, and other government-owned and operated projects. In 2005, the Supreme Court turned that notion of public use on its ear.
Economic development and the payment of higher taxes or the creation of more jobs is now a public use under the Fifth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. A very dangerous precedent that the court set, but as I mentioned, that has led to this this backlash against what I think it's fair to call the most universally despised Supreme Court decision, perhaps in its history.
My name is Suzette Kilo, and the government stole my home.
Suzette Kilo is an American hero. She is a woman who stood up for her rights, and in the process stood up for the rights of all Americans. She was a homeowner in New London, Connecticut, that simply wanted to keep something that was incredibly valuable to her, the first home that she ever owned.
For Suzette Kilo and her neighbors, that Supreme Court decision was a profound disappointment that capped an exhausting legal battle.
Over 10 years ago, I was lucky enough to find a great deal on a house with a terrific view of the Thames River, the Long Island Sound, and the Atlantic Ocean in New London, Connecticut. I spent every spare moment fixing it up and making it the kind of home I had always dreamed of. I'm sure you've heard the expression, location, location, location. Well, this was the wrong location, only I didn't know it yet.
Just after Suzette Kilo bought her little pink house in 1997, the Pfizer Corporation announced it would build a massive new research facility in Kilo's Fort Trumbull neighborhood. The City Council approved plans in January of 2000 to help Pfizer acquire the land it wanted in New London. The plan made dramatic use of eminent domain and was all in accordance with state law.
The group that had the power, I think, also had some arrogance. And I think they understood that the law did, as the law was written in Connecticut, they did have the power to do what they were doing, as wrong as it seems. And as long as anybody was going to challenge them or fight them, they were going to enforce the law and exercise it no matter what. And I think the more the homeowners dug their heels in, the more the people with the power dug theirs in and said, well, we'll show you.
The homeowners who wanted to stay were served with eviction notices the day before Thanksgiving in 2000, but the legal battle between the Fort Trumbull residents and the city continued for 5 more years.
The Supreme Court has agreed to decide if governments can seize people's homes and businesses for economic development projects.
The High Court heard the case in 2005, and it was to be the most despised Supreme Court decision in many, many years.
What the Supreme Court basically said was our land was only our land until someone else could make better use of it and pay more taxes.
Justice Sandra Day O'Connor wrote in her dissent, the fallout from this decision will not be random. The beneficiaries are likely to be those citizens with disproportionate influence and power in the political process, including large corporations and development firms. Justice Clarence Thomas wrote in his dissent, something has gone seriously awry with this court's interpretation of the Constitution.
If there's anything that I think should take high priority in America, it is the protection of private property.
This is something every American and certainly every member of Congress can identify with.
Reaction to the 5-4 decision was immediate and forceful.
As a result of the Supreme Court's unbelievable ruling, a majority of the states have passed legislation offering more protection to American property owners.
They certainly felt the pressure of the public. I mean, a lot of legislators told me as I was talking to them and lobbying for this legislation throughout the country that they've never had phone calls like they did in reaction to any court decision, whether it's from the Supreme Court or any other court.
The reason this case became what it is today isn't because the Supreme Court said 5-4, you can do this. It's because how the general public across the United States reacted to that decision.
And though it may be a small consolation, the project that cost Suzette Kilo her home has essentially gone nowhere.
3 years later, Kilo's house has been torn down and the lot where it once stood is vacant. In fact, Realtor Market reports that there is no new construction in the area because the city-sponsored developer has been unable to secure financing because interest in the project is minimal.
There is absolutely no new construction.
That's the test case, though.
There's nothing.
Every case after that.
Because there's a short 2-minute video-ish about 5 years later. I'm not a big fan of showing tons of videos, but this
5
is
years ago,
important.
the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that the government could take away your home, your business, or your farm and give it to someone else for their private gain. But thankfully, that ruling in Kilo v. City of New London wasn't the end of the story. It was only the start of a national campaign against eminent domain abuse.
Kilo is one of the most universally despised Supreme Court decisions in our nation's history. And opposition to Kilo cuts across the usual divide.
On that note, Suzette Kilo, this I think family Gobbles novel, close by the city of Cincinnati. This is one of the houses you have seen in your satellite sketch. I actually have that newspaper article right in the moment.
Hear about in America today. And I think it's only a small exaggeration to say that about the only people who support Kilo are those who stand to benefit from eminent domain abuse: politicians, developers, and central planners.
In the 5 years since the decision, there has been an unprecedented backlash against it. Politicians and business interests may have won the battle, but they lost the war.
Less than a week after Kilo came down, the Institute for Justice launched our Hands Off My Home campaign. We were determined to translate the outrage that swept the nation after Kilo into meaningful reform in legislatures, courts, and communities across the nation where private property is being threatened by eminent domain abuse.
The results have been striking. So far, 4 state Supreme Courts have rejected the Kilo case, while another 4 have recognized greater protections for property owners facing eminent domain abuse. Moreover, 43 states have responded to Kilo with legal change, including both legislation and amendments to state constitutions.
Of the 43 states that changed their laws, at least 35 now prohibit the kind of takings used in Kilo. More than half the states went even further and reformed their laws so that cities can't label ordinary areas as blighted and then use that as an excuse to take someone's property and give it to another private party.
In addition to the successful court challenges and legislative changes, grassroots activists emboldened by the Kilo backlash have successfully fought back against projects that abuse eminent domain.
Before Kilo, it was impossible to defeat wealthy developers and their politician friends. But in just the 5 years since Kilo, we've seen 44 eminent domain abuse projects defeated at the grassroots.
Meanwhile, in New London, the Fort Trumbull project has been a total failure. After spending more than $80 million in taxpayer money, there has been no new construction whatsoever, and the area that was once a vibrant, close-knit neighborhood is now a barren field filled with demolition debris and home only to feral cats. To add insult to injury, in November 2009, Pfizer, the linchpin of the whole development project, announced it was closing its research facility next to Fort Trumbull and leaving New London for good, just as its tax abatements are about to expire. To be sure, challenges with eminent domain abuse remain. Weak state reforms must be strengthened, and the battle must continue in certain states, like New York, that have refused to reform their laws. But for Suzette Kilo and her neighbors, even though their neighborhood was lost, they know that their battle was not in vain. And Suzette's little pink house, where this all began, still stands, now in a neighborhood about a mile away from Fort Trumbull. Like Betsy Ross's house in Philadelphia and Paul Revere's home in Boston, Suzette Kilo's pink cottage stands as a monument to her and her neighbor's struggle, one that has changed this nation for the better.
So it gives you shivers, huh? You read this small little article in the book that says eminent domain, governmental power to take private property away in the means of health, welfare, and safety. Health, yeah. And then it's like, this is not the way this works. A classic attempt, again, start out in the videos, is the idea of using this to, let's say, build a larger road. Interstates have been used to using eminent domains. Railroad tracks, depending which country you are in. You know? Germany, private railroad tracks do not really exist. Here, they do. The reason why Brightline is so successful and was finally really great in terms of their timing is because they used what? Flagless old properties. Yeah? So they actually own the rail and the property rights, which is kind of the funny. Remember the story about the railroad crossings? As in slowing down with the train and the cities have issues with the traffic on the railroad crossings? Not in that case, because the railroad crossing is owned by Brightline or subsidiaries of Brightline. Yeah? Makes a huge impact. If you look at rail and how rail traffic is scheduled, take a look at the Chicago area, take a look at Washington, Baltimore, Wilmington, Delaware, Philadelphia. Amtrak's schedule is not, let me rephrase it. Back in the days, Amtrak could happen to stay and wait for half an hour, if not longer, if that race train management train of CSX or Norfolk wasn't running on time. Remember, you have been standing in the rail crossing at one time, and you see 30 wagons, 30 cars passing. Think 50. Yeah. If you're in Montana or in certain areas in Kentucky, they are longer. You leave the car and go to the coffee shop because the other train is coming the other way. Yeah? That's a huge problem for municipalities and development. All right. Ohio, eminent domain. Remember these guys? This is the picture at the wall in the backdrop. That's just an example here. 2,000 feet, the property came out. Same issue, City of Norwood and the real estate developers back there. Certainly not really fair in terms of developments and how the tool, eminent domain, was used and abused. Again, this is a teaser for legal backgrounds. Get informed about that because it can happen to you in small and large projects. If you buy a single family duplex in your own rehab, it's probably not the case, but just simply think about, you need to start thinking rehabbing developments, maybe merging properties, changing zoning, changing density. The next 10 years will be very interesting in a broad county with some ending capacity of land depending on time. Industrial land use, warehousing is already seeing the end of the tunnel. And it's black, there's no light. It's a dead end street. So how is that market going to transform and change? All right. I want to close this with, read the newspapers, be informed, talk to your local political folks, not to necessarily manipulate them, but staying informed. I got that by a side note, I got that by surprise, I didn't check the legal news on that until I heard about it in a very tragic way. This is the fun part. July 1st, State of Florida enacted a new bill, House Bill 631. House Bill 631 also, this is me pointing this out, this is not me being anti-property development or all the legal stuff, yeah? Says basically, get off my beach. I own it. Go away, family. I don't want to have you guys fishing and dog walking in my beach. Like literally, like, this is my property, stay out of it. Which makes sense. Huh? If you're like somewhere, I don't know, Cooper City, sitting in the front lawn or your patio, you don't want to have people walking your front yard or crossing your backyard, climbing over your fence. But there is no fence, there's just beach. Huh? So, the whole discussion here is, where does the public own and have access rights or granted rights granted to cross private property, particularly the beach? Is the beach actually part of this health, welfare, and safety thing? Someone who lives in Montana says, are you crazy, a beach? Yeah, we got a lake here, you have a bunch of rocks and you jump in. Yeah? So that's the reason why you actually have a beach discussion mostly in the coastal regions. Yeah? The mean high tide is the rule so far. However, if you look at that sketch, and this has been all over the place. Huh? If you look at that sketch, you can argue, well, where does the mean low tide and high tide ends and stops for the lay person who has no idea about marine biology, oceanographic, or anything that has to do other than the beach and a blanket and a trick? Alright? You're not a lawyer, you're not a beach super technician.
The average person doesn't know and really doesn't care.
People should care, but they might not know. So they also argue, okay, fine, it's the wet sand zone, not necessarily the dunes, but the wet sand zone. So the romantics walk in the sunset at the beach alone and getting your feet wet, that's part of it. Yeah? But it's not really sitting here with your family and playing in the sand with the kids. Alright. Think about that. Beach access rights, state of Florida, private properties. If you own a hotel in South Beach, yes, because you can now completely block that beach and have only the non-customers walk in the wet sand, and you get the full zone controlled with your private property rules because you're the hotel person. When I saw this the first time, I said it's not going to be about a hotel and people walking by. I have a bunch of folks that wake up at 4 a.m., wake up before 4 a.m. to be on the beach to check on sea turtle nesting. And that is actually one of the issues. Because apparently sea turtles are completely in violation of the Florida statute described in House Bill 631. Therefore, we had actually cases where sea turtles crossed into private property, and the private property owners have been extremely excited about a tenant in the backyard not paying rent. I had friends who did go on private property with the approval of those private people. Private special locations, like if you're in the intercoastal, leaving with a cruise boat, looking on one side is the Oceanographic Center, on the other side there's little tiny bungalows. They used to have one nest there. They had issues there. Private property owner, here, key access codes, deal with it, sea turtles. We are going to face a problem that if you volunteer for sea turtles, just to document where the nest is, you're trespassing based on that property rights bill. It is as simple as a sea turtle. That said, let's do a break. Before everyone falls asleep. Let someone wake up Bruce, please. Who's the most?
Alrighty.
You solved the real estate law problems. There is a just decision. There are different ways to rule on that, depending on how the government actually deals with that.
Obviously, the first back then,
it's more regulated, people are more careful. Yeah, I had a friend whose family was actually not having the main case, and they got like $4 million more out of that than before. His family lost $5,000 in legal fees. And that's new news. So it's one or the other thing. How are you guys holding up? Long day? Sorry. I gotta say, you guys have been last week with 2 midterms. You have been more awake than today. What? Just saying it.
I felt like last week was the worst, but I feel like everyone's sick there.
Yeah, let's do it.
Last week felt the worst of the year so far.
Quick refreshment, have people stretch, like literally stand up, move, mow, take a walk down to the hallway and back, refresh a little bit.
I did, I went outside.
Well, I can't really let you guys go early, but not too much. I really want to cover 1 or 2 more important topics. I'm actually switching from housing. I skipped the housing part.
Yeah, I was kind of confused about that.
I'm going to straight into the third part just to finish it, because that is not in the textbook. The textbook you can read, you can have a discussion with your friends. How did we do in the legal stuff? Okay?
You're right on. Good. That's all.
Said one lecture a year, and you realize, I miss this. I was thinking just for that, Rory writes land use law school at some time. For this, you have to learn all of that again. I write. So we're doing a current training exercise by the college to improve the quality standards and of course design. Not just online, but any course design for classes and how you set this up. Starts with simple things, what kind of policies you need to present to the students, or be more transparent and clarity. We've gone through this online testing and training, and you have to make quizzes, and then you actually have to
did you guys see that?
say, hey, this is a test syllabus, test class, take a look at this. Does this follow standard 1.4? We'll pull out standard 1.4 and we'll test this is standard, this is the annotation, legal by notes, side notes. I had a colleague who wrote this. Or that. I wrote this. First of all, I was really hyper. In the middle of the night, it was like 1 a.m.
You're traveling Saturday?
Pulled out Word document and started writing. In compliance of the standard, stating the standard. I'm like, oh, this feels like solding code. This text you see on the left, in fulfillment in the compliance with that standard, yay or nay. The call is you test all this for has met or not met.
She will?
And after all that, here's some recommendations, and then you write your staff report. This is bad. So tomorrow is like this, Thomas is like this.
I don't know about tomorrow.
Or next week. Or was she talking about next week?
I'm clearly overdoing this exercise.
I'm guessing you're talking about next week.
I'm gonna go back to that tonight. It's like 2-week training every day.
This week I'm not able to do it. This week I've already made the plan to head back up after class today.
Okay.
But you know, I can make a plan to come in early. Yeah, next week. You know, if I need to come in Friday morning, I think.
Some people are falling asleep, so we gotta figure out. We might just have another.
I can do like afternoon on Sunday for sure.
Yeah, I can stay here Sunday after.
Quick
That doesn't bother me either way. I just need to know a little bit more ahead of time than this weekend.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah, next week or the week after, I usually, my original game plan was to stay Friday and Saturday night now. But I haven't been the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So.
Alright, so this is a renewal. Alright, small change in plan. So you guys don't fall asleep. Let's have a little bit of an idea of what's really cool out in the world. There's video involved, which I will post on Canvas, so we're not using class time to watch videos. It's about Philadelphia, so it's really, really, really cool. Urban renewal in Philadelphia as an institutional approach. Alright. Cool. So, what is urban renewal? Hello, my name is Thomas. I'm an educator in this university, and I would like to have a conversation with you.
Revitalization.
Revitalization. Revitalization of what?
The land.
Urban land. Okay. What else? What is urban renewal?
Figuring out if there's something better for the neighborhood.
All right, something better for the neighborhood. Reusable. What is better for the neighborhood? Do I need to change people in the neighborhood? Do I put new housing structure in the neighborhood? Oh, density could be a factor. What else could be urban renewal? Warehouses to condos, loft warehousing. Okay, she's laughing and smiling. Okay, come on. Tell us, what is urban renewal from an architect, international perspective, from the city of sustainability in the world? Please note she's first stretching to break up the brain. I don't put you often on the spot, but you are living in the city in the world, your family there, Cuchiba.
stuff that,
that is known for sustainable development, and that something like this works in
Oh, hell yeah, he does.
all the dimensions. The 3 E's: ecology, economics, and
No, it's not about football. That's about doing the right thing.
Oh, that's
environment. All right, what is urban renewal? Woody, what is urban renewal?
Urban renewal. Is that, I really never, I've only heard that term a few times, renewal. Is that like repurposing? Is that like repurposing?
Well, that could be repurposing too.
Well, yeah, repurposing is big right now.
All right, what do we repurpose? Are we repurposing people? Properties. How are we repurposing properties? Maybe vacant land and transform it?
No.
Not really.
I don't know, I'm just guessing.
What do you have in mind when we talk about repurposing and rehabilitation and renewal? Yo.
Well, in our other class, our land use class, Professor Hinn, we did a project on Winn-Dixies that were closed because of their, issues.
Like, see those empty buildings, like.
Yeah, no,
So?
this is a repurposed, they're gonna repurpose those units to retail plus residential above them. So originally it was just retail. So they're doing this all over and, you know.
Are they demo the building and using the space? Or
No, this is Professor Hinn's plan.
Oh,
this is not actual, this is our class project, so.
Actually, they're doing that actual right now.
Well, there is, but not the, well, we did the Boca one.
Yeah, but the thing is, depending on how the box is built, you can't just put stuff on top because you have an architectural problem with the integrity of the structure. But you can work things around that or partially rehab and rebuild. All right, so urban renewal, we have a few ideas. What is the planning perspective? Fine. How many people have a planning degree or planning background? Let's talk about real estate. What is the great opportunity and the pros and cons for urban renewal in real estate?
Do I get to go again?
Go.
Okay.
I try to wake you guys up. I have tons of pictures right now, but I want to go crazy
you know,
next half an hour.
with Uber, you know, everybody says that we're not going to need as much parking. So all the land planners are already working in the cities that they're reducing the amount of parking and creating more units. So
we could argue like that, yeah.
So that, I don't know if that's a positive or negative, but I know that's a trend.
It all depends, you know, like, you can look at a city like Detroit, which doesn't have as much kind of upside as, say, it's like Washington, D.C. You know, a city like Washington, D.C., where the land value kind of stays the same or it goes higher. And people are looking into those urban neighborhoods to try to make, you know, get those little brownstones. And there's money there to do that, where like in Detroit it may not be, or in other cities where it's.
All right, take the Uber example. Airport around the corner probably can't change much on their garage space anymore for short-term and long-term parking at the airport terminal. Yeah, fine. I can't recall that I went to the airport to fly in my personal car. I swing by, pick up someone. The worst case, I'm short-term parking for half an hour to pick someone in the terminal. Yeah, but that's it. So if you're an urban developer, real estate developer, and you're doing like downtown core development-ish thing, what you need to consider now a parking space for your retail companies like bars and restaurants. You could maybe present the argument, hey, we're in the time of Lyft and Uber and shared rides and any other form. We are not going to have the restaurant with 15 parking spots. We're going to have the restaurant with 2 parking spots. Those are handicapped parking spots. Something like that. Could open the discussion. This could be an application in real estate for urban renewal. The existing space is limited. How can you make something better out of the existing space? Yeah? I did the provocative comment, do we need to replace and renew the people? Not really. But if you're going to be very hip in redevelopment and also very hip, using an old school cool term, hip, you're going to probably increase the rental level. So what was $800 before, same size, better amenities, cooler kitchen, maybe an update in the pool. It's not 800 anymore for, I don't know, let's make up numbers, 1,000 square foot. No, it's 1,500 now. Because now you're looking at a new ambient, vibrant neighborhood, walking distance to a small brewery. Riverside on 15, Riverside Market. I like that place. It's really cool. If you haven't been there 2 years ago, you are not a local anymore. Because it's jam-packed when you show up there. And you say, man, all these touristy people. Having a condo on us orders an Uber to the Riverside Market. Yeah? Something like that. Different perspective. Making this example, we have seen this in the inner cities and long-term developments in a more drastic way, including race, ethnic groups, income, everything. The hardcore term that comes into the idea of pros and cons is gentrification. Yeah? And every time we do development and we want to have a little bit more in our rents, we are part of this process. Believe it or not, want it or not, we are part of that machine that helps to modify neighborhoods. The question is, to which extent do we allow to go down the rabbit hole, or being still hovering on the surface and trying to be socially inclusive in some of the terms we can deliver in our performer. Because at the bottom line, we have to crunch our numbers. I think that comes in the next slide, socially inclusive. No? I'll post these. These are really cool, little dated areas. It's about Society Hill in Philadelphia, which was this major redevelopment where they actually have in the city planning department like tables. They can flip over and see old versus new. They put the model on one side and the
I've seen that.
yeah, it's really great. It's a really great time to watch this. Please post this tonight or tomorrow. Probably tomorrow. Tomorrow's a big work day. It's a good time spent to understand how you transform social areas as well. It's not just that one apartment we put in place. It's like if you're talking about the American Dream Mall, yeah, and like a 300-acre development south of it that will benefit from it in some way. Yeah? Put that into perspective. How many users you're going to put in there? How many people? How many dwelling units you put in that place? Yeah? Metropica here at the mall. Those towers. Those are new customers. Great. Those are new community members. Where do they go? Where do they go for food? Where do they go for hangouts? That's a condominium. Sorry, I have a certain idea of condominium life. I can't see my barbecue grill on a typical condominium balcony in Aventura. Homeowner Association does not allow for that. I grill steaks and fish, so go figure. My neighbors will love me. I smoke. I smoke. As in, I put a rotisserie on my grill and I have 3 pounds of pork running for 6 hours in birchwood. It smells like the whole neighborhood is burning down.
That smells amazing.
Yeah, it's all on my Instagram. I do foods. I stress cook. I cook a lot of food when I'm stressed out. I spend more time cooking than I'm not stressed yet. I can show you later 2 pictures or 2. It was like the things of last week's. It was like, I have international followers and I'm pretty sure they're copying that stuff for their restaurants. Alright, speaking of renewable, now you guys are awake. We're talking about more fun. Alright? So, what is urban renewal? What is the planning? We had that. I want to talk a little bit about a little city called Bayreuth, Germany. Alright. Have you been stalking your professor? Have you checked your professor's CV? Alright, in this case you would know this is my college town. Alright, Bayreuth is famous, world famous for 1 or 2 things. Have you ever heard about a guy called Richard Wagner?
Yeah, the
Opera House. Opera House is from that place about a mile north. Yeah? So if you have seen movies with the helicopter choppers coming in, right off the Valkyrie, that's Richard Wagner. So they are famous also for the guy who plagiarized his dissertation, was like defense ministry, blah, 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 blah. So my university has been through a bunch of fun stuff. All right, so what you see here looks really, really cozy, does it? You know, it's a walk by on a nice weekend day. This is a little creek. Yeah? And they have like stairs, there are people sitting down there. You're allowed to public drink. So if you're here on a summer day with a small basket and put a bottle of wine and cheese in it, that's perfect date night downtown. Yeah? Fine. You see, like, this is a bank building or bank in the first floor in the arcades and retail and coffee shops, yeah, and then residential on top. Those are multiple 100 years old buildings, red or yellowish sandstone. Around the corner is a 400-year-old opera house. However, this is urban renewal. Why could that be urban renewal? Because those stairs in this picture are like 10 years old and this house is hundreds. Yeah? Because this Greek was running through here and they put a concrete wall on top of that, flat concrete, wonderful blacktop asphalt was running here as well, until a lady walked her dog and got stuck in a hole. Because concrete ages at some point of time, particularly if you have 4 seasons. So they figured all this channeling on the top of that creek had to be replaced. And instead of filling concrete on top of that, they dig the stairs in, put all this nice fulfillment here in the area, and made that a really nice pedestrian zone. Really cool. You walk down there, you would not believe that this is one of the most hot traffic zones before they did urban renewal with the bus stops, etc. Yes, please.
So if they just filled it in, like
no, they didn't.
No, I'm saying if they had, it wouldn't be considered urban renewal, but the fact that they like went and changed like the structure of the area.
Well, that little creek turns into a river mine that runs by Frankfurt Airport. Yeah, Frankfurt am Main, Frankfurt City. Yeah, that is one of the feeders, so you can't disregard that. You can't just block off that. And what they did is in the back path, they channelized that. They realized, let's have some open water flowing there, and people are really liking that. It's not really so great, but the fact that you say we have those stairs, we open this up, this is south facing, so this is perfect sun side.
It's great for the community.
Yeah, it's great. People that hang out there. You can, I don't know if I have another picture, but you see this umbrella down there. There are people sitting here on the sidewalks and just hang out and have a coffee. Yeah? Pedestrian zones. We only experience pedestrian zones where? At the beach, Hollywood Beach boardwalk, and inside a mall. Yeah? This is public space. This is traffic. This is a bus. Yeah? And then you walk into the pedestrian zone as well. All right. Different picture, opposite corner of the pedestrian zones. When we talk about complete streets, this is on-street parking, curbside, on-street parking. This is a postal guy, DHL. Yeah? Bicyclists, no bicyclists. Certain pockets to park or enter parking spaces, pretty much the backside of one of those alleys. If you look at the size of the car, this is not a very wide street. I have folks that have a wider side driveway in my neighborhood than this. Yeah? All right, I talked about old school buildings and sins of development. This is a sin of development. This is a pure concrete building, fairly new, next to an old church, and all these you can see the architectural style, still the same. Some issue, I think a fire it was back then, brand new brick concrete. Not cool. This is actually used to be a bus stop right there. They removed all that. All this is now pedestrian zone. Until, let's say mornings, till 10:30, 11 a.m. Because you gotta have a delivery here. This is a supermarket. Small little coffee, like small scale supermarket, twice this room here. Still making bank because it's a top location. Turn around, remind yourself, this is the main street. This used to be traffic for buses, 2-lane traffic for buses. When they open up this, you would sit more to the far right. You sit there, you have your pretzel or white sausages and a cold beer. This is actually a non-alcoholic. I want to point that out. Drove 400 miles after that. Don't drink and drive for long distance. And remember, if you would sit there and a shuttle bus would drive by. Not really cool. Nowadays, after delivery time, this is a morning thing. It's like coffee, like 9 o'clock. You can see all the traffic, all the pedestrians, a little bit water wheels to show the kids. This is livable space. If you think Munich, this is like Munich, the city hall area. Everyone's like, oh, this is so nice, it's a nice place. People sit and drink and have coffee. Yeah, that's how you study there. Saturday morning, instead of 8 o'clock, you sleep in at 9:30, you find friends to drink. This is actually Tuesday morning, that picture. Yeah? But it's a different lifestyle, different perception of office space. Look at all these different buildings. Compared to Las Olas, different flair, different, again, what are places? Spaces with felt value, culture, and identity, different identity. Yeah? All right, transportation, short overview before we quit on this. That depends.
Professor, our Lincoln Road is very much like that, like where you can walk. It's pedestrian friendly.
Oh, see?
They
need to find a destination for a new field trip.
No, Lincoln Road is because we don't really have that here much in the U.S. But is that a trend? Do you think that we're going to start going to more of that walkable?
Yeah.
Think about this, and just those 2 blocks around Lauderdale by the Sea Pier, England's Pier. That kind of beachy walking, sort of traffic going.
Commercial Boulevard, you mean, right over there? Commercial Boulevard?
Commercial Boulevard. If you take Commercial Boulevard and hit down the pier, England's Pier, you have this one traffic, and there's the roundabout, you have the coffee shop, the Aurora Coffee or something like this, you have ice creams. So you have like 2 or 3 blocks of small shops, walking, relaxing, not really stressing. You go in there as a destination to relax, hang out with people, be friendly, chill out, but you're not doing this on a daily basis, almost like this.
But this doesn't impact the shops?
Actually, you make more money.
No, I'm asking, which, does it impact it, or do you make more
There's
money?
always a discussion what impacts a shop or retail. Is it a pedestrian zone? Is it not having traffic? One thing you can see here, there's a passage down to a main traffic route.
Okay.
There's actually, behind the church, there's actually a pedestrian bridge into a urban entertainment shopping center, which was huge back then with 19,000 square meters times 9. 1 square meter is 3 by 3 foot. Calculate that. Yeah, it's a piece of cake. Student Union building appears bigger than the shopping center behind that, but it was legendary back then. They're all area pedestrian zones. This picture, you walk out here, this is a pharmacy, you walk out here, turn left, that's all connectivity. The picture on the back here, this is where you get to the shopping center. If you walk zigzag through the buildings, you're pretty much here. It's like literally walking from the parking spot to the destination, to this place, taking 5 pictures. Take pictures when you go on trips. Send them to me. Depending on the topic of the class, I will include them. I will include you in pictures. Remember the warehouse trip we did in summer? You have been part of an undergraduate class in property management talking about warehousing. The crew picture and Carlos with the lights, part of the class. It makes the class a little bit more flexible and viable. Alright. Say what? I can share those pictures with you. It's a nice group picture. It's like small students, huge warehouse. Alright, planning for transportation, that depends where you're at, what's the culture and the identity of transportation. What's the acceptance of transportation? Are you going to deal with buses versus rail? Who knows what's a SIP car? Have you heard about a SIP car?
Yeah.
What's a SIP car?
SIP car is like a rental service car.
Or it sits on the street and you just get in it and go.
You just, yeah, you have like a card or something.
You can basically use, you're a subscriber, you basically have like 3 parking spots for 3 SIP cars, and you rent that car by the hour or by a day or something over the weekend. But it's highly regulated, but it's also the idea of giving you don't need to have a car in a garage all year long if you just need it for the weekend trips. And apparently it's supposed to be more economically than renting a car. Yeah?
Especially if you're in an urban city.
But Uber changed that. Did Uber change that?
Well, Uber is very difficult for them to get through in Massachusetts. So
well, depends.
Very regulated in Massachusetts.
But depends where you're at. Uber is like just a few pennies. if you are in that corridor, let's say Brightline Station, American Airlines Arena, and going out to South Beach, if you live in that area, you don't need a regular car. You need a transit ticket and an Uber. I'm pretty sure if you don't count long distance trips like vacation in the Keys, if you count that, you get around with no car. On economic terms, the money you pay for the car and the insurance per year and the garage and the gas, I'm paying $1,300 right now for my car. So think about that, how much money I could Uber with that, just paying in insurance for the car, not gasoline and all that. So there are people who, depending where you live, in which town, this density is important. You do that calculation. If you have a good streetcar system and good buses, you might actually consider to live somewhere closer to a streetcar stop than somewhere nice, far, far out. And gasoline prices is going to change the world in the next 5 to 10 years again and again and again. All right. The transportation of what and who? Is it me? Is it family? If you have family and depending on the age, you need a car. Kindergarten drop-off, school drop-off. There's a certain age where you just have them hop on the yellow bus. If there is a yellow bus, if you are in part of the yellow bus, maybe you're not, because you send the kids to private school, so you drop them off. Yeah? And again, what and how much? Is it a one-day trip? Is it a regular trip? Is it coal versus grain versus potatoes? Is it refrigeration when we talk about transportation? It's not just people we transport. You can say Amazon is really great. Click a button, have the book next day. What is the mileage produced in CO2 and gas consumption for that book to come from Kentucky in 2 days to your door? I haven't seen Amazon yet making advertisement how they recycle the boxes. If you look at HelloFresh, they actually show how they just deconstruct the box. Small little things, think about that. Every time you order Amazon, you're producing something in terms of gasoline out externalities. Now we talk in transportation, we talk about externalities. Almost back in the planning mode. Think more ecological. All right, perfect world. No aging infrastructure, no technology needed. It's perfect. Yeah? Cost of driving, which you just mentioned that. Yeah? Cost of driving to come to school. Every Saturday, Max is running 3.5, 4 hours. 4?
3 if I'm driving fast, but
4 with speed.
It's 250 miles one way.
That's his investment as a cost in driving for education. It's mind-blowing. I appreciate you to be hell awake at 4-ish p.m. in my class.
It'll pay off.
Thank you. Yeah? Cost of driving for me is 8 minutes this morning. Yeah? I was here at 7:30. I'm like, ooh, I'm actually early. All right? We're not going to talk about replacement cost, operating cost, because that's transportation mode specific. But I want you to keep in mind, as a real estate developer, if you can talk transportation modes, type of transportation and transportation costs to the community in your development, they will hug you. If you present walkability in every step of your development you do, again, this is not one apartment, this is maybe put up townhomes. How do you connect your 150 townhome development in 2 phases to the existing community? If that's warranted, how do you deliver that in communication terms to the city? If they like that, they will hug you. Or at least give you the fingertip, or the hand hug. That's how I learned that like 10 days ago, a week ago.
Do you really do that to people?
For the hand hug?
Yes. Oh my God.
If I may. I learned that. 2 weeks ago. Alright.
Hugging is not allowed anymore.
Alright. One thing late in the day, something as a homework assignment, this is more a philosophy economic term, the so-called Pareto improvement. There's this Italian economist called Pareto. And Pareto improvement is basically the idea of at least one person is better off and no one is worse off. Meaning, if I buy you out of your property, or buy parts of your property, or I want parts of your property, let's say for an easement, so I can access utilities or something like this, I will pay you for that. So I compensate you for the loss of that use, as an example. I have to make sure that you are not worse off. Huh? Which comes to the idea of, well, if my utility access is a nuclear power plant, I will pay her for the access road, but I'm not going to pay Woody for the nuisance of potential radioactivity. Huh? Make this really extreme as a case. Huh? So in terms of community, there's an imbalance. So there's not anymore the Pareto improvement. Yeah? All parties involved need to have status quo after compensation and trading. Nobody can be worse off. It's a very cool, interesting project. Translate that into real estate development. You are seen as the bad boy coming to destroy the community and enforce gentrification because of your new apartments. What could be a thing that you can present to the existing community? More walkability, more services.
More people who may want to actually buy your property because they're around it.
Maybe that. Maybe you can also say, hey, listen, we are adding 200 people living in this community. This is going to be good for the retailers down the street. They're bringing purchasing power into the community. Yeah? Depending on how you design your new project, this is beneficial for the community. And we got to do some green spacing. Why don't you just say this is not private property, no trespassing, this is turning into a community park. There's a children's kindergarten across the street. Why don't you open up your open space and say the kids can come, please?
Depending on density, it also could be argued to lower the cost of living.
Some way you can argue to lower the cost of living, exactly. If you think about that, you actually can define your success as a real estate developer with economic theory, calling out the guy from Italy called Mr. Pareto. Yeah? There's a ton of literature behind that, but it helps to negotiate your deal as well. Because at the end, planning is about finding consensus. Yeah? What you want is you want to chime in with your ideas and adding to that consensus. Because if everyone is happy in the room, your project is going to be approved and fly. Yeah? All right. Engineering stuff. We skip this before you all fall asleep. All right? What's the basic idea is, how many trips do you need to go to where and go to talk about scheduling and capacity time? In a world where you have one car going over there to the other car, doesn't matter. This is the idea of, okay, fine, combine a few things in relationships. Am I going to see friends after class since I already drove down here or not? Yeah? Or am I going to combine things? I know that, let's say, Max is coming in on Friday. He has a social moment Friday evening, hanging out with friends here. And then does all the school stuff, takes off after. Trip combinations. I'm going this direction. While I'm going this way, let's say I'm going to the Home Depot. While I'm going there, I can pick up something else because I'm just around the corner already. Or once in a while, when I'm actually going to Miami, I'm adding this with this other activity. Not using that restaurant for that specific trip. I'm using a restaurant because I'm already down there with no food. I swing by at the other place. Okay? All right. Why is traffic so important for us? Why is traffic so important for us?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, answer please.
Convenience. Convenience.
So many reasons.
You know, people kind of like the example you gave earlier, several classes ago. I mean, if you're in a busy place like our area is, and are you going to go across the intersection that way, or are you going to try and stick the route that keeps you from having to cross crazy, busy traffic roads?
The McDonald's Burger King example, which one is more convenient?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Air quality as well.
Air quality as well. Are you planning for traffic when you build some real estate?
I would hope so.
Yeah, you should. You need to be able to defend it to the Metropolitan Planning Organization how you're going to add thousands of traffic counts per day. No?
Impact fees related to like residential.
Impact fees. This alludes back to the idea of traffic flow heavy, as in bottlenecks.
What are the flows of the current stuff that's in place? What can
Exactly.
it handle in addition to what we're going to be providing?
At the end here, come back to our in-class gaming. What about traffic in urban plan? Have you started to talk about the traffic zones in urban plan you're at? Anyone propose to shut down the street for a pedestrian zone? Push the livability as a buffer zone, maybe? No, huh? We talked a little bit with Kona about lights and amenities and rotate the building. There's on the south side, there's this one high traffic road, but that's it. Anyone came up with the idea, why don't we just propose a new bus route to pick up employment centers? No? So yeah, it's part of the book in the later chapters. Well, it's important for us. What if I could propose a new bus stop for an existing route and say I actually give away a little bit of my land as the right of way? And I can convince Broward County or the municipality to do that. They're putting money down to actually build that station, and you donate the land. As being part of the how do we improve the whole quality of the project. Yeah? You just can't go in all the time, drop a bomb as an application, come back to the hearing and disappear in your suit. Well, I usually dress up for a planning and zoning meeting, but if you show up there in jeans and t-shirt, if it's a small town, you want to just have a fence permit, or deck building permit, that's okay. If you present $30 million investment, you might want to dress up a little bit. But still, you see the $100 million investment, still a t-shirt and shirt and jeans, and a nice check on the top. So, comments aside, you gotta think about how you impact with your development on the site traffic and with outside of the site. How do you get into your development? How do you get out of your development? Does everyone need to turn around in the U-turn later because you made the internal design wrong? Here on the University Drive, depending where you turn, you just have to go a few more blocks up to make another turn because you can't U-turn in this one. Fun fact, if you're at the Horowitz building, the main administration building, this really
you can't turn into it.
With the right, beautiful roundabout. Yeah? The roundabout, it looks like they imported that from France or somewhere. Yeah? If you hit Davy Road, College Avenue, if you hit College Avenue to get out of the university, the only way to turn is right turn, because they put that concrete median up. You can't left turn to go up to Davy Road 84, 595. No, you have to U-turn somewhere where a U-turn is not allowed. You drive into Broward College and then turn there. Really bad, simple traffic planning. Or you just know that and you exit here with the law school. It's annoying that you have to do that. Bad planning. All right.
How does a community improve walkability?
Hey.
This is Urban Planning 101. Walkability affects community health, economics, and the overall livability of a town. It is not just about being physically able to walk somewhere, but about all the things that influence your choice to take care of daily activities on foot. 400 meters, or a quarter mile, is the distance the average person can walk in 5 minutes. When a trip becomes longer, people choose other, more convenient ways of getting around. But we cannot just judge walkability with a straight line measurement. Separated land uses, dead-end streets, large blocks, and poorly designed and arranged developments can mean that many places are undesirable or unsafe to walk through, or more than 5 minutes away. By changing some of the ways we build our neighborhoods and towns, we can make them more walkable. The following are 3 ways of doing just that. 1, arrange the uses in your community so that people can get to many of them on foot. Put neighborhood convenience stores, daycares, and parks in the heart of residential areas, and make sure these are connected to main downtown commercial districts. And don't make blocks too large, or at least include safe, well-designed shortcuts through them. 2, focus on placemaking. That means making destinations people-oriented and interesting by mixing a variety of uses and designing spaces for different kinds and ages of people. And remember, all trips start and end as walking trips, so even include safe walkways through parking lots.
That's a huge
And
design
3, make your neighborhoods and districts pleasant for people to walk through, with streets, buildings, and landscaping that are all designed to focus on people's experiences. This doesn't have to be complicated. Placing buildings close to the street, avoiding blank walls, and including street trees along sidewalks are some of the most universally effective ways to make a community more pedestrian friendly. With these simple long-term policy goals and land use decisions, and basic design and development solutions, you and your elected officials, municipal planners, and builders can work together to improve your community's walkability. I'm Robert Voigt, and this has been Urban Planning 101.
Super simple short video, gives you the total idea of, I gotta walk somewhere. But, last few slides and then we are done with this. Walkability. What do I see right now here?
Elaborate.
A library. Let's get back to the library in a moment. I hear bicycles. How many bicycles can you count?
It's probably 25, 30.
A ton. How many bicycles have you seen recently on this campus? None. How many skateboards do you see here on this campus? Once in a while, if you're here in the evenings, kids come out because they're from here. Yeah. Alright. This is a side alley. Look at the human dimension. Again, this loser sign. Human dimension. Yeah? Church in the back, there's a hillside. Heidelberg, Germany, beautiful town. Alley, regular person kneeling, regular person standing, so you get the idea of the dimension. That's a subway. They're doing a good job there too. It's in an alley. It's not at the corner. It's not a big sign. You literally walk by, you see 2 things. Subway and, oh, what's that? This is actually a foundation that donates those bookshelves, and people just go there, take a look at it, read the book, take it, bring it back if they're well behaved. Maybe they bring old books by themselves. There's no librarian that you. So I showed that one of the first classes, a little bit after I showed that picture to a student, a bunch of students in the class, I got that back. I can't remember, was it Kenneth or was it Jason? You should have to check the email back then. That might be Kenneth. Yeah? This is in Boca Raton. Little concept of, if there's no library anymore available for you, you might have to, or you can't go to the library must go to you. In rural America, we have old school buses transformed into library buses where once a week or twice a week the bus rolls through. You can pre-order your books or you just spend the hour in there while they stop. You pick up the books, return the books, and you're there. You don't have to drive the hour uptown, down the road, up the valley to get to the library. So all the craziness you see here on the weekends when families are coming into the library here and doing a blast, to have a family day, the library has a bunch of new books, doesn't exist in certain places. Now, how do we urban renew things or renew things? We need to maintain what is given as a service or used to be given as a service. Read a book. Don't do a Kindle or e-readers. A book. Best thing that happens to me during a hurricane, I read books. I literally have pile of books ready to rock. Or I just read them some other time, but read. Heidelberg, more Heidelberg. That's a pedestrian zone of Heidelberg. Weekday, Thursday or Friday morning. I picked up a friend I met in the US, practiced as an architect in Germany, now he's from Greece. So speaking of international connections. This is a walking train of school kids, kindergartens, for elementary school. All these homes here, if you look at the book, talks about courtyards. All these gates are leaning into a courtyard with shops and or just laundry lines. This is packed. But if you look at the size of the people and you try to figure out how wide that is, it's jam-packed. This is like a third of Las Olas. This is jamming. Old historical buildings, beautiful architecture, some renewals and modern facades. This is towards the pedestrian zone towards the church. That's kind of the cornerstone in that kind of virtual tour. But I'm trying to give you an idea. This is a vibrant Friday morning neighborhood, midtown main pedestrian zone. Parking is around it or used for transit. There's no one complaining about walking 2 blocks. They're coming to walk 7 blocks. Then you have this phenomenon. You know what this is? It's smart. Smart is cool. Smart is a small car. Speaking of zoning ordinances and parking.
New York, did you hear about New York and smart cars?
Let me tell the German story, and then we'll figure out if New York is the same thing. Look at how that smart car is parked. In that parking bay, I can park 2 smart cars front in. So what if there's 1 parking meter? Which smart car driver is now responsible for the parking meter?
On the left.
I don't know if it's on the left, but they actually, City of Nuremberg changed their parking ordinances and established smart car parking where they put 2 meters in there because they realized that that little thing is so little, you can park them right next in the same size of a Chevy. Smart. Smart is as well this one or a Vespa, a roller. Look at the, talking about texture and open spaces. This is how they differentiate the setups. That's the entrance area. Look at the headstones. Interesting. Vegetation, just absorbed. Interesting. This is lunchtime. A historic church with little shops around it, and the whole plaza is full of people eating and drinking, not just coffee. Friday morning, everything is jam-packed. And on top of the hill, there's actually a beautiful castle. That's the reason why I'm showing you this. Hidden entrance. You walk by and you're like, ooh, what's that? The only way why you think, ooh, that's that, is you see that post. The size of wet floor, be cautious. You walk through to that entrance gate. It's an outdoor seating on German beer benches, with some food here and a bakery here. These are apartments for thousands of dollars because they're right downtown. 100, 200-year-old housing market. Not comparable with the condominium tower that was built 5 years ago. Look at that. They're maybe not even regular standard thermal insulated glass, maybe that one, but some of them look really old. But this is kind of a vibrant livability. You walk in, it's like, wow, I just want to sit down here and enjoy that place. Sit here, eat something. Different idea of how to perceive open spaces. And as long as you just run, get some food, run back, unless you're there in the evenings. All right. Speaking of sending pictures, do you remember this guy?
Yes.
Who's that? Diego. So, Diego, I knew Diego before this was the program. So, that's why we're connected via social media. So, the church I showed you is down here. That's the church plaza. That's exactly the corner of the church I showed you. A river, old historic bridges. all this pictures I showed you down there is in that corridor. And then you take a bunch of stairs up, beautiful historical buildings, and then you come to Heidelberg Castle. Diego basically said, so we have this professor from Germany, but he never said that he has a castle in his backyard. Because if you ask me where you're from, I'm like, well, if you know a little bit about, if you have been military, I tell you the base close by. If you have no idea, I tell you, well, Heidelberg and that area. And Heidelberg, okay, I heard about that because of that castle. So Diego posts this on social media and says, well, I'm in someone's backyard and he never told us. Now I'm telling you guys. Yeah. So all this beautiful stuff here, this is the corner of the church. He is actually seated. You can see that little ripple here, that little thing? That is the lower part of the castle. He stands really behind that building here. Yeah? Alright, we're going to skip that.
Say river, is that the Main?
Rhine. Yeah, we skip that. Complete streets.
The Main or the Rhine? Which river is that?
Main.
The Main, right?
Heidelberg, not Neckar. Heidelberg is Neckar.
Neckar.
He knows a little bit about the corner there. So the Neckar runs into the Rhine and the Main runs into the Rhine. So you're about an hour south of Frankfurt. Frankfurt is Main, Heidelberg is Neckar. Mannheim, we remember Mannheim? First lecture we talked about historical preservation, how patterns work through time. This was a city with the quadrants, like the squares and the funny looking addresses. In terms of livable and complete streets, this is a street. This is a pedestrian zone of it. There are people sitting all over the place, a little bit more department store stuff, yeah, old housing, the people are living on top of that. Yeah. You turn around, same day, Friday evening, Saturday morning, this is Saturday morning. Yeah. Turn around, here, ring, 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 it's a streetcar right behind you. Yeah. So think about streetcar for another day to come. This could be I don't know, is it going to Flugas or close by? But think about that. You're sitting out there, this is pretty jam-packed, this is not as livable to sit there. Yeah? But again, you have happy German people smiling and combination of modes of transportation. We don't really see this here because. But lastly, Speyer, and I will quit this one. There's another city I showed you. More than 2,000 years old. Roman Catholic Cathedral used to be a Roman Empire fort. Roman Cathedral in the back. We're standing right now at the old city wall tower. And this is literally walking with a Greek guy through your town you went to high school with. Different pattern, pedestrian zones, some people park. You get really run over by strollers and by bicycles. Like annoyingly run over. But again, I want you to absorb the urban space. First floor, retail. That's a bus stop. Second floor is no more retail. These are apartments and condominiums, or single owner condominium style, co-op. Yeah? Different architectural styles. You walk down here or zoom in, you can see the church is coming here. Again, built in I think 1150.
Oh, wow.
Yeah? Multiple times rebuilt and all that. Original with like straw on the ceiling, on the top. Now it's copper. But again, different perception of space. It goes so far that the dad is just rolling by and getting ice cream. This is the South German way of drive-through. Kind of ask if I take the picture because of the kid and he turned the kid's face, so they're a little bit sensitive, those guys. But this is, I thought this was really unique. This is not like the drive-through's REE experience. Yeah? And keep that picture in mind. We will see more and more like that to come. A complete street, to close this with the legal terms, a complete street is a more inclusive way how we perceive streets as open space for pedestrians, cars, any other members of traffic. Yeah? Once in a while you might experience even